Okay. All right. Well, this worked. Hello, BookTube. No one's here because no one knows where I am or when this is happening. But this is the second attempt at a live stream, which neatly preempts the subject that I was going to open with. I tried to make a live stream on this channel just a minute ago, and it looked just fine. I set it up hours ago and got to the point where I was just going to go live, hit go live. The little circle appeared on the screen saying you're going live, and I never actually did go live. Instead, I just stayed there in a vague kind of limbo, apparently forever. And as near as I can tell, this is now where I am. It's a different live stream. Simultaneously, I had to shut off, I had to leave YouTube. And then because I assumed that live stream is just going on forever, I had to leave just everywhere, just leave the computer, turn it off, shut it off, turn it back on again. No idea what happened. No idea what. I'm assuming that the fault was mine, but I had a whole bunch of people waiting, and now I feel like doing the usual streamer thing of just twiddling my thumbs, rhetorically twiddling my thumbs until everybody shows up here. But I don't know. I don't know if anyone will. As far as I know, everyone is still watching that old Stevestream. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can find out whether or not that one is still on, and whether or not people are still there. I have no idea what I did to make this screw up like this. I might as well check and see, since I have been completely discombobulated from my. Yeah, the other one is still listed as upcoming. Okay, all right. Well, I don't know what to say about that. Uh, okay. Hang on just a second here. All right, that's about as much as I can do, is just to let people know that this is all weird and that I had to move, and now I have moved. So now I am back here. I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to press ahead. This will just be a failure. It was just a momentary glitch. The minute I tried it the second time, it worked. So I'm not going to let it obsess me. Instead, I will move on to my planned topic, which is writing related, but we don't have to stay there. If I develop a chat, if people do show up here, then we can talk about anything you want. But the opening subject, of course, that I wanted to bring up was the fall of NaNoWriMo. I made a video about it. I made a Steve Reads post about it, but it's been on my mind. It's been sticking with me because I really enjoyed NaNoWriMo. And I enjoyed it for a long time. And that means that when it's gone, it feels like a phantom limb that's not there anymore. I made a video about it, and at the end of that video, I mentioned that I didn't want to let go of the spirit or the purpose of NaNoWriMo. I love both of them. I taught writing for on and off for a long time, and I loved the experience. And two of the things that I stressed to students, not that I'm trying to invoke a student-teacher relationship here, but I have had more experience doing this than you have. Two of the things that I tried to stress before there was a NaNoWriMo, I would stress to my students, one, actually, I've said both of them on this channel many times. One is that there's no such thing as creative versus non-creative people. It's just a muscle, like anything else. So I don't want anybody, I used to tell my students, I don't want anybody in this room thinking, well, there are some writers in this room, and there aren't. They're all writers in this room. You're all writers. You can be if you want. And all people can learn to write. All writers can learn to write better. So I don't want to hear anything of that. You're all writers. You can all do it. And the second thing that I always tried to tell people was, that writing and editing are two completely different things. Do not edit while you write. It makes as little sense as having the brakes on when you're driving your bicycle. It's ridiculous to do. So don't do it. Train yourself, teach yourself not to do it. And it wasn't just teach yourself, because I was right there to help teach both of those things. And I did that for a long time. I had a lot of fun doing it in many different places in the world. And then NaNoWriMo came along and started to grow. And unbelievably, to me, it had those two philosophies, that everyone's a writer and that you shouldn't edit while you write. Now, the everyone's a writer part was part of the egalitarian nature of the internet just in general. NaNoWriMo was not a building that you went to in Oslo. It was a thing that you could do anywhere in the world. Anyone could do it. All they needed was a computer connection. So that went a long way towards reinforcing the oft repeated idea of mine that everyone's a writer. And the other thing that I used to repeat all the time, they reinforced by their very structure. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, not National Novel Writing Year. It's National Novel Writing Month. You write 50,000 words of the first draft of a book, so you're not relying on anything old. You're creating something and then writing it. You're charting the unknown on a blank page. 50,000 words in 1 month. The only way you can do that is to turn off your editor, is to not edit while you write. They did come to explicitly say you shouldn't edit while you write, but it would have been implicit in the task anyway, because you can't do it unless you turn off your inner editor. So it was a joy for me to see that. It was a joy for me to participate. I watched NaNoWriMo for a while before I did participate. Then I did participate and had a blast. Then I got to share it with you for years on YouTube. And it was only when I realized with this latest scandal, coming right on top of last year's scandal, which was odious enough, but this scandal, it just gets worse the more you think about it. It really does get worse the more you think about it. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized this is not a blip on the radar, and this is not high dudgeon. This is me leaving NaNoWriMo. The key being that there's no way I could trust them in the future. So the door to the future is closed. And that's bitter. That really is. And it's been sinking in on me. Since events that I love take on a momentum of their own, that took time to sink in on me. And it has now sunk in on me. Even more so than when I made my video the other day. And when I made my video the other day, I ended with the idea that maybe we should start some sort of writing collective of our own. Because surely I know that I'm not the only person feeling that void. I'm not the only person who has canceled his NaNoWriMo account, but misses the idea of communal writing at least once a year. I know that ad hoc writing groups are sprouting up like toadstools all over the world. There are plenty of people. I have correspondents in many countries who are saying, no. NaNoWriMo is being sponsored by an AI company, and now they're all on board with AI, and they say we're bigots if we're not. No, I'm done with them. But I don't want to give this up. And through NaNoWriMo, I've come to meet a lot of fellow writers. We've fallen into the habit over the years of emailing each other off the forums, away from NaNoWriMo, and we don't see any reason why that can't just be a writing group. Writing groups existed a long time before NaNoWriMo did. Surely we can have writing groups, and writing groups are a lot of fun. Think of your own reading. Think of how many books you've read where the author, in their acknowledgement section, thanks their writing group. That's because writing groups are so valuable, or can be. So I floated the idea of starting a writing group, and boy, oh boy, did I get response. I'm still getting responses. And that's been wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. People saying, yes, we should do something like that, and I agree. The only problem is timing. That's all, which is going to seem really strange to those of you who are new to my channel. There are a lot of people here who weren't here last year, much less 7 or 8 years ago, so they don't know what the streamers refer to as the lore. But I'm going to be concentrating on the fall season of books, and then I'm going to be losing molecular cohesion. So September, and realistically it would be October, it is not a time where I can create something new and throw myself into it. It would have to be in the new year. And I don't know what to do about that, because it feels like I shouldn't let November go by without writing in a concentrated burst. I was planning to do that anyway. And I guess the answer to that is to do a very informal writing group for November. So all of you who were gearing up for NaNoWriMo, what if, I'm just floating this idea, but what if we stayed geared up for NaNoWriMo for November, only it wasn't NaNoWriMo. Instead, we just did a writing group. So, like, for instance, I don't particularly like Discord, but we could start a Discord. And just for our, just for our November writing group. What if we were to do that? I wonder if that would work. But anyway, I just thought I would bring that up first, just to let you know that's the subject that was on my mind. Now we can turn it over to the chat. I see that there are people here. The screen says 7 people here. I think that's what it means. I think it says 7 people here. I don't know. I don't know how many people are here, but I know that there's a chat, so we can go over there and chat just a bit to welcome the return of the Stevestream, which almost didn't happen because the Stevestream was gone for 2 weeks, and then when we returned, I tripped over my own feet right out of the gate with a going live button that, for all I know, is still spinning away somewhere in the bowels of YouTube. So let's just look over and see what we have. So Brian Bird is here and says hi. Kevin J. N. says hi. Jared Henderson is here with his check mark. Have you found your alternative to NaNoWriMo now that it has self-destructed? Well, I was talking about that. I want to make a fully formed alternative to NaNoWriMo, but it's going to have to wait for the new year. I want to make a fully formed thing where we have regular StreamYard meetings and a thriving Discord community. Discord seems like the place to do that. Heavily vetted and heavily controlled, so it's not the wild and woolly Russian bot farm experience that Discord so often is. But that's going to take time to do. And time and concentration that I don't have to spend on it before in the last quarter of any year. So that's going to have to wait. But an informal writing group could happen, I think. David Galloway says Frederick Jameson, yay or nay? Like a yay or nay would help in any way. Sid says we're here. Kevin J. N. says I'm really enjoying a bright sword. Good. Albert says good evening. That reading guy is here. Don't worry, I'm here now. Good. You all migrated over. Good. Thank you. No idea what happened there. I did everything exactly the same. It was my fault. It was mysteriously my fault. NP Hunt says the YouTube gremlins have retreated into the mysterious abyss of the algorithm. As long as the algorithm doesn't find me, I have plenty. I don't need more. I want the algorithm to find other people. William Gallagher still hasn't got 10,000 subscribers, for instance. Monet Doyle says hello. NK Mandel says hello. Teresa says, what kind of music do you like? All John Philip Sousa, all the time. Dorlin Starn, all is fine. Frida is as calm as a cucumber. Frida is very calm. We've had a very, very active day. It's been a beautiful day. Just beautiful. It's very dry. It is too dry. It has not rained in way too long in Boston, but it was a beautiful day. And when it's a beautiful day, I'm sitting there, I'm working. If she has even the slightest inclination to go and stretch a leg, we do. No hint of, oh, I can't right now, or oh, just wait a minute. No, nothing like that. My answer is yes. So we've been out and about a lot. So she's nice and tired. That reading guy says a pre-David Murphy Stevestream. I see. What is the topic? Writing. Whatever could you mean pre-David Murphy? What could you mean by that? Tolstoy 111 says, at an earlier Stevestream, I asked about the 12 chairs, and you hadn't heard of it. I assume you subsequently read it based on my mention, so I'm suitably gratified. No, it wasn't based on your mention. It's just I drew a blank during that Stevestream. It wasn't until I saw Brock's video that until I saw the cover of the book that he held up that I suddenly thought, oh. And I actually didn't remember your prompt when I saw that video. It was just 2 separate streams of mentality. Sid says, great to see that we're getting a mail haul today. Yeah, it's not a big mail haul. It wasn't big. It was interesting. It had a very interesting book in it, but it wasn't big. I'll try to do better. Some Okie dude says, what's your beef with therapy and philosophy? I have lots of beefs with both. I don't think if your question is followed by a Twitter abbreviation, I wonder how sincere it is. But I have beefs with both. Evil Joshua says, eagerly awaiting the announcement of King Tentacle writing event, a writing group of some kind. It doesn't have to be anything more portentous than that. It can just be a writing group. Plenty of people have writing groups, and plenty of those writing groups, especially after the pandemic, are not in person. I don't see why we can't have a writing group with a dedicated Discord where we can all get together and compare notes and maybe set up a structure, maybe even a ghost of accountability. Here's a kind of a deadline that we're all going to try to observe. I think that would work. Aaron the Book Baron, I know that name. Finally, a Stevestream at a decent time for UK viewers. Well, isn't every time a decent time to watch Steve? Jenny Parks is here. Shall we ask, have you read just to start fresh banter? No, we don't need feisty banter. We don't need to have you read question. We can especially go without until somebody asks one unknowingly and steps on that grenade innocently. It hasn't happened yet. So let's see if we can go the whole Stevestream without it. D. Ziggin says, Steve, which comic omnibuses do you recommend? All genres are welcome. Well, the big omnibuses that Marvel and DC are making now, I can recommend their contents, but them themselves, they're almost unusable. They're way too heavy, way too unwieldy. They're very well done. I mean, the whole shelf of Marvel's omnibuses of their Conan the Barbarian, those are lovely things. They're beautifully made. I used to have a whole bookcase of these things. Nowhere near as many as Michael K. Vaughan, but a whole bookcase of them, until I realized that it pained me to use them, that I didn't want to use them, especially once I had them as ebooks. Right now, I have, for big omnibuses, I have Chris Claremont's Extreme X-Men and Roy Thomas's Invaders, and that's it. When I used to have 20 of them. Jed Donahoe, well, I can stop waiting for the old chat and ask my question here. Have you been watching season 2 of The Rings of Power? Yeah, the old chat might still be going, but I'm not there anymore, and I'm not going back. I watched the first three episodes of The Rings of Power. I got screeners for the first 3 episodes and watched them. I don't know why I did. I don't know why I did. There was no reason to do so. There is nothing you can do with The Rings of Power if you are going to honor season 1. You have to scrap season 1 completely and start over. Recast the whole thing. Everybody, the showrunners, the writers, the directors, and all of the cast. Recast, get rid of all the characters, and start all over. And they didn't do that, and I knew ahead of time that they weren't going to do that. I knew that we were still going to have Galadriel, the Kryptonian superwoman. I knew that we were still going to have oblivious Colonel Blimp elves that don't care about Sauron, that only care about keeping a woman in her place. I knew we were going to get Gandalf and hobbits. I knew that we were already going to get all the stuff that profaned Tolkien's legacy in the first season. So there's no way to fix that. None at all. So when the showrunners were saying, oh, I think the fans, we've heard you loud and clear, and I think you're going to be pleased with season 2, I knew when they said that they were lying. That was just a bald-faced lie. And it turned out to be one. So I watched the first 3 episodes. I'm not going to watch any of the rest of it. I'm not going to ask for a screener for the rest of it. I'm not curious at all. That reading guy is back. We need AuthorTube writing videos from you, how to create characters, how to end the story properly, proper pacing, etc. Well, AuthorTube videos, sure, but what if that was part of some sort of writing group? What if that was? What if we did something new for a writing group, something really good, a combination of how-to videos and workshopping each other's work? What if we did a kind of workshop? I think if I could only hammer out the details, I think it would work. I'm just not in a position to hammer out details this late in the year. Trish Boville says, what are your thoughts on the next read aloud? I have loved Pride and Prejudice. Oh my God, I have loved Pride and Prejudice too. And just broadly, that is something that I absolutely love about BookTube just in general, is that you don't know what's going to end up being really fun. I mean, to me, all of it is fun, but things stand out. And I had no idea that Pride and Prejudice, that reading it and talking about it like this was going to be so much fun. I had no idea. It is an absolute joy. It's going to break my heart when it ends. It's going to end this week. And it's going to break my heart when it does. I have no idea what the next one will be. The problem is, again, it would have to be a fairly short book. Because not only am I not going to be reading it across the Terminator between one year and the next, but I'm also going to lose concentration in late November and early December. So I wouldn't be able to finish then. So I don't know what it would be. I definitely want to keep doing it though. Definitely. That reading guy is back. How to determine stories that work and ones that don't work? Well, Ask Steve would be a good first step. Jenny Park says, thankfully, NaNoWriMo seems to be bigger than just that website. Yes, that's the whole thing. That it's taken me a while to realize, made me feel really good to realize it, is that NaNoWriMo created something bigger than itself, which means we were all in a perfect position for NaNoWriMo itself to then kill itself, because it wasn't going to kill the whole idea. Sid says, Frida looks so adorably tired in the background. She's pretty tired. We had a pretty active day. I try to give her an active day if I can. Some days she doesn't want it. Some days she's just totally indifferent. Go ahead and keep writing. But not today. Today was so beautiful that we were just out and about at all times. Auntie Gaia says, NaNoWriMo sounds too intimidating. Can I write a novella instead? Well, we would, well, first of all, NaNoWriMo is the task of writing a novella. Okay. 50,000 words is a novella. I'm sorry if that conflicts with the rather lackadaisical 21st century, but nevertheless, it's true. But second, in a writing group that we would make, we could determine what the parameters are going to be. So if you felt like writing, what you feel like reading would probably work. I would like it if it could be both a writing group in the fullest sense of the word, where, unlike NaNoWriMo, we are looking at each other's work, responding to each other's work, a kind of writing group / workshop. That reading guy says, considering all the writing projects you have done, shall we mention self-publishing again? Yeah, well, self-publishing is also a major thing, and I have let it go too far. If it gets much closer to the whirlwind at the end of the year, it won't get done this year. Steve Abramsky is here. Hey, Steve, what's the elusive quality that the greatest of writers and poets have or develop that the average and even good writers lack? Yeah, nice brief chat question. I think it boils down to courage. If you can ask a reductive question, I can certainly give a reductive answer. I think it boils down to courage. Are you willing to say the hell with it? I am feeling this on the inside. The hell with the market. The hell with my agent. Are you willing to do that? Even a little. Are you willing to do that? Aaron, the book baron, Wordsworth or Coleridge? For what? A dinner guest? That reading guy, 18.4K subs already, might reach 19K soon. This channel will never reach 19K. That reading guy says the King Tentacle writing group. I don't want the writing group to have a king. Happy Nightmare Books. That's new. It says 82 watching on my end. Okay, I don't see that number. I see the number 13. Am I not understand? I'm not understanding what I'm looking at. 82 would be an astonishing number. Let's see here. Ingrid Fritz. Oh, you're all saying 82 something or other, or 83. I'm not seeing that number at all. Ingrid Fritz says, I like this idea of writing group very much. There are enough people who are here right now to do it easily. I agree. I think a core group, it wouldn't be only the people who show up in a Stevestream, it would also be some other people who would join. I think we would have a fairly sizable group of people who would be interested and who might want the shot in the arm and also constructive criticism. Colin says, is Michael Rogan's book Ronald Reagan the movie good? No. Aaron, the book baron, says, I'm reading arguably, and his literary criticism seems a lot more subtle and thoughtful than his strident social commentary on, say, religion. Am I justified in thinking this? You are. Yeah, he was much better on books. He should have stuck to that. J. Scott Phillips says, where do I sign up for Steve-O Writemo? Well, there's no place to sign up yet. There wouldn't be much to sign up for. I think some sort of communal discussion forum would work. And that I don't like the idea of Discord generally, because I don't want all of you people talking amongst yourselves. I want to rule over you with benevolent omniscience. I don't want, the minute I turn away from you and pay attention to some other part of the cosmos, you'll start to build the Tower of Babel. And we all know what I'll have to do then. But if it's a writing group, then it doesn't seem so bad. Damien says, just wanted to thank you for all the great videos. Well, isn't that nice? You're welcome. At 52, I'm fairly new to the channel, but I'm getting so much out of it. Well, isn't that nice of you? Believe me, I get a lot more than I give. Jared Henderson is back. I admit I've never updated the NaNoWriMo site, even when I've participated. I never cared much about the official organization. It was just the writing that mattered. Me too. And I know that a lot of people did that. They did not submit their manuscripts. They didn't care about actually winning. And I bet those people are breathing a sigh of relief now that NaNoWriMo doesn't have a copy of their stuff. And as far as I know, as of the 5th, NaNoWriMo, the organization, has not responded. I might be wrong about that. I don't think they have. They know the firestorm they've kicked off. I can bet that their registration numbers dropped like that. I would be willing to bet that it was a gigantic hemorrhage of people. And that's probably still continuing as word spreads. So if they haven't come out with an answer yet, I would sure love to know what they're going to say. But I wouldn't believe it. I mean, the best possible thing that they could say now would be to come out with an official statement saying, we have heard you and we completely reverse our earlier message. AI writing is not ableist. It is not privileged, and we did not mean to insult you. And also, it's not allowed on NaNoWriMo. Again, with the honest system, if you want to use it, you can, but we're saying you shouldn't, that you're not allowed to. They won't do that. When's the last time anyone ever staked out the social justice warrior high ground and then gave it up? They don't do it. Once you've called somebody a racist, it's tough to walk that back without an explicit apology. And in 21st century, no one apologizes for anything ever under any circumstances whatsoever, not even and not especially when they are dead right wrong. So I don't see any way for them to reverse it. Mark says, due to your reading speed, is rereading more akin to rewatching a movie? For most people, rereading could be a days, weeks, even months-long investment, and that might be why some don't do it. Well, I don't know about rewatching a movie, but I love it, and it's not a huge time investment for me, so I do a lot of it. Steve Bronstein says, have you made any headway with Dostoevsky rereading? No. Here, have you made yourself worthy of the Steve Sieski moniker? No, I need to assemble Dostoevsky books. Doubt it'll happen this year. Some Okie dude says that sounds about right, Aaron. Some Okie dude says Hitchens is better literary critic than polemicist. Monet Doyle says I have been doing a lot of mood reading. A lot of mood readers in this chat, I'll bet. D. Ziggin says, Steve, can you do Deadpool's Bye 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 dance? I can't do the dance, no, but I can't get the song out of my head. I thought I was done with it. Longtime viewers of the channel will know that it was my earworm months ago. Before the Deadpool movie, it was my earworm months ago, and I finally defeated it. And then it becomes the marquee song of the summer. So there's no getting away from it now. DT says, is The Privileges by Jonathan D. any good? I was kind of recommended it. I don't remember it. I don't remember it very well. Not on solid enough ground to say one way or another, that's for sure. Hassan says, Steve, when you say you don't sub-vocalize, what goes on inside your mind when you read instead? I can't imagine. I'm reading in my mind. I'm not speaking in my mind, but surely you can imagine that. There are plenty of times in your life when you're not speaking. What's going on in your mind then in those times? Surely that's true, that there are plenty of times when you're not talking. I'm not talking. That's all. Steve Bronstein says 12 Chairs was a very popular children's book and movie in the Soviet Union when I was growing up there in Ukraine in the 80s. Oh my, I could see that. I've never seen an adaptation of it, but I could see that it would work. DT says, I enjoyed the new Deadpool. So did I. Mark says, I was also wondering about your dreams, given you only spend 90 minutes in the dreaded comatose state, and given it takes about as long to start dreaming. Do you dream often? I do. I hate it. I don't know why anybody would like it. I hate it, but I do. And I tend to remember these things, which I don't like at all. If I'm going to do it, I want to forget them right away. Kevin J.N. says, Steve, are you still keeping up with your visits to the local comic shop? Any news stories captivating you? Well, no, I don't go to the local comic shop at all. I don't know what your mention of keeping up means. I don't go. I have no local comic shop on my regular route anymore. I haven't in a long time. Even my guy from Newbury Comics on Newbury Street left the company, so he wouldn't be there anyway. I wouldn't get any customer service. I'd just get stared at by pale white, non-gendered, rail-thin, proteinless comatose patients who, I know how to work the machine that we take your money with. I'm not going to acknowledge that you exist. I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to ask you anything. I'm not going to try and help you, but I know how to work the machine that takes your money. So I don't have a whole lot of incentive to go back there anyway, but they're not on my route anyway. I don't have a route now. So no, every once in a while, my surly houseboy will go to the comic shop. Got me a comic book. The reissue, I don't think I have it near me. The DC Comics did a facsimile edition of Detective Comics number 400, the introduction of Man-Bat. And he got me that issue, and that was fun to read. But no, I don't keep up with any modern comics, no. Tolstoy 111 says, I recently read McTeague to get a taste of Norris, and he tastes bad. I told you, what on earth? You read McTeague when I told you it was a complete waste of time? A gripping final image, though, probably influenced the hard-boiled writers. Well, yeah, that final image in the Chaparral, yeah, that influenced every Western writer and hard-boiled writer in the world. But look at what you have to suffer to get to that image. As I have told people many, I've never taught McTeague, but I've told people many, many times that I don't want to spoil the book, but when you get to that final image, that final moment, one of the characters is McTeague, and you are the other character. It's just like that. You're being dragged around through this book. Just, you can't get rid of it. You're manacled. uh, DT says, I know you like David Drake from Military SF, but do you like The Forever War by Haldeman? How good is it in your estimation? Yeah, Haldeman's really good. The Forever War is really good. Yeah, I think For All My Sins Remembered is a little weaker, but I really like his stuff. Street Medic says, not have I have you read question, but should I have read The Crucible of War before The Glorious Cause? No, they're both meant to be standalone. Gola Muad'Dib says, hey guys, directed at you all, not at me. David Galloway says, I'll try again. Do you think that the Marxian vein of, oh, for God's sake, these are not chat comments. You are asking me for a dissertation. First of all, you're asking a dissertation in a fast-moving chat full of people, what's the word? Chatting. And two, you're asking me for a 1,200-word dissertation for free. Do you think the Marxian vein of literary criticism a la Frederick Jameson is a worthwhile elevation of the conversation or a 70s fad? It is a 70s fad. It is worthless. DT says, anything by Robert A. Heinlein you like a lot? Well, Stranger in a Strange Land. After Rocket Summer, I loved it a lot more than I thought I would in a reread. You mentioned him the other day in your movie adaptations video, and I wondered what you thought of his juvenile versus his other books. I know it's going to seem a little bit scandalous, but I kind of like his juvenile stuff. I think it was his perfect register. But I like The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. I like some of the stories in what's that big anthology? I can see the cover of it. It has The Man Who Sold the Moon. I don't remember, but and I also love Stranger in a Strange Land and a few other things. But I genuinely like it. Some oaky dude says, I'm with you, Steve. I only made it to an episode and a half of Rings of Power before I threw in the towel. A second season was fated to be complete garbage because it was building on the first season, and you can't do that. The first season was completely worthless. There was nothing in it that was any good on any level of the entire production. There was nothing in it that wasn't any good. In fact, it was all really actively horrible. So there's no way you can build on that. But even so, I still watched. Anyway, Jenny Parks, Elrond yeeting himself off a waterfall and Gandalf yeeting fake Frodo and Sam almost had me cheering. Yeah, Elrond realizes that Gilgalad and Galadriel want the elven rings of power because they're being drawn to their preciouses. And he has to protect them from that, so he jumps off a waterfall, 1,000-foot waterfall, and is not hurt at all. The elves of Middle-earth cannot be hurt. Galadriel faces a pyroclastic flow in the first season, straight in the face. Isn't hurt in the slightest. Elrond isn't even dry. He isn't even wet when we see him next. He isn't hurt at all by jumping off a 1,000-foot waterfall for no reason at all. The elven rings do not act that way. They are free from Sauron's input. Anyway, Aaron, the book baron, I should take some time to give you a grateful shout out for being so generous with commissioning for Open Letters Review. Oh, it's my pleasure to do. It's wonderful to do. DZIGIN's Rings of Power is I hate Tolkien, his fans even more, and now we're going to show you just how much. Yeah, this is done out of hatred of the fans and hatred out of Tolkien. This is not, the showrunners said, however many years ago when season 1 was perpetrated on everybody, they said that we want to tell the story that Tolkien didn't tell. But what they meant then and what they still mean is we want to tell the story that Tolkien should have told if he weren't a racist and a bigot. It really upsets me. The Rings of Power really upsets me. I know it's very small fry on the list of things that should upset me, but it does. It really does. Because no one's ever going to do this again. In only a year or two, Amazon is going to own the rights to the whole trilogy. And then they'll be the only ones who can do anything with it. It won't be possible for Peter Jackson to come along and make 3 miraculous movies. It won't be possible to do. Books for Eric. Steve, can you send me that book about paradox poems to review for Open Letters Review? Maybe. I don't know its date. I also don't know who sent it to me. It could be that it's a workbook that I have to review it myself. Aaron the Book Baron. Lyrical Ballads is a very good choice for Shorty September if anyone is interested. Oh, the chat jumped. The chat jumped in acknowledgement of Aaron the Book Baron deciding that I am not giving him the kind of responses that he wants. So he needs to go elsewhere. He needs to ask other people, talk to directly to the chat. But even so, where did we go? There we go. Some Okie Dude says it's not because there's black people and women in it. Rings of Power is just boring. The pace drags like a snail. No, it's not because there are black people and women in it, although there wouldn't be any black people in it, but it's because it's really bad. No matter what element you come down on, no matter what aspect of the show, the costuming is terrible. The lighting is terrible. The writing, why do these characters all sound like this? They all sound like Anglo-Saxon fortune cookies. Why do they sound that way? No one talks that way in the Lord of the Rings or in the Lord of the Rings movies, which I guarantee you is the only thing these showrunners have ever seen. They've never read the book. But all of it, the costumes, the acting, the writing, the pacing, everything, it's all terrible. All of it is. Anyway, Gandhi Angles, have you returned to your favorite Chinese food restaurant or found a new place? I have not found a third place. I dread going back to my old Chinese food place because I'm afraid it won't exist anymore. I'm afraid the family's moved on or closed up shop. That would break my heart. And I haven't found any other third place because every time I try to do so, I just stick with the baby instead. I just stay with the bean and don't go anywhere. Dylan Mathias says, I know you follow British politics more closely than most Americans. What do you make of the current Conservative Party leadership election? I'm surprised Patel was out so early. Well, that's not the story out of UK politics, is it? I don't think that's the story. I think the story is what looks to be the overnight collapse of civil liberties. I mean, Keir Starmer is giving people jail sentences for voicing opinions on Facebook. And when I first saw that, I first wanted to blurt out, well, that's completely illegal. But it isn't. It'd be completely illegal in America. But I'm amazed by that. You could, if you're a citizen in the UK and you have a YouTube channel, you could get yourself a knock on the door in one video. I've been watching tons and tons about that, about not Patel, but what looks like a government crackdown on civil liberties. All for the what seems like hysterical protection of a very certain demographic among the immigrant community. A weird story that's unfolding. Not the biggest story today, of course. The biggest story today is that all sorts of conservative lapdogs in YouTube circles have been revealed by the Department of Justice, no less, by Merrick Garland, as Russian stooges, as paid Russian stooges. That's been the major story today, and also the major source of joy. Let's see here. Mark says, I think Steve thinks every vein of literary criticism ought to be drained, completely coiled up, and tossed into the Atlantic. All right, well, you're saying what you think I think instead of asking me, so you must be talking about somebody else. That reading guy says, what do you think of the new animated Lord of the Rings, War of the Rohirrim movie that is coming out from Warner Brothers? It's going to stink. It's going to stink. There is absolutely no reason in the world to expect otherwise. Expect that it is going to stink. And you won't be disappointed. You'll be disappointed, but you won't be surprised. You won't be shocked. Expect that it's going to stink. And you won't go wrong. I haven't seen it. I don't even have a screener for it. But I already know what I'm going to see. I'm going to see black and Asian Rohirrim, and I'm going to see that the Rohirrim are 60% women. I know that I'm going to see that. So there's no reason for me to be surprised when it happens. These are directives that movie studios have now. They can't change them. They're part of their fiduciary duty to their stockholders. So that's what it's going to be. And there's no point in thinking otherwise. Street Medic says, so I submitted my Locked Room mystery to Amazon story contest. but I forgot to change a significant plot point because I was rushing to meet the deadline. Oh, I don't know how closely are those things going to be read. Manne says, yes, episode 4 was a disgrace. They took direct quotes from scenes from the Bombadil scenes in Fellowship, along with shoehorning in some Ents and references to the Shire as this promised land. Yeah, it was a disgrace for a lot of other reasons than that. The whole foundation of it is rotten. The idea that Galadriel is the only elf who thinks, we really should be paying attention to the threat of Sauron. The idea that Celeborn needs help to figure out the basics of metallurgy. That's from a guy he knows is a traitor. Anyway. DT, Steve, why is Dune's philosophizing not crap? It is crap. Do you dislike those portions of those passages not count as philosophy? No, they are bad. Tim's Too Many Books is here. The algorithm has pointed me in the direction of John Jakes. I have bad memories of the miniseries of his books North and South. Should I ignore the algorithm? Well, if it's telling you to watch the miniseries, yeah, the miniseries is terrible. Actually, North and South and the Bastard miniseries are all terrible. No offense to the himbo star or to Tom Bosley as Ben Franklin, but they're not worth the time to watch. The books are just barely worth the time to read. So you might want to try that instead. Manne says the philosophy in Dune is always grounded in the natural world of Dune, if you say so. Shahar ZXIYA 109 here now. Street Medic 110 watching. Jenny Parks 109. Gola Muad'Dib 109 people. Good Lord, is that true? Where would I find that? Well, that's a lot of people. Anyway, Jenny Park says all we need for everyone is to get their wine and calzones. Oh, if I could have a writing group here in this room every week, oh, how wonderful that would be. Ingrid Fitz, I think our new writing group would need Preptober to get out the kinks and bugs. Yeah, well, I don't know what the kinks and bugs would be. I don't know what form it will take yet. I think about it. I thought about it all day today. That reading guy, wait, we can't call it King Tentacle Writing Group yet. You still want to rule over us. No, I don't want to rule. No, I've had more experience both at writing and at proctoring writing groups than probably anybody here. But I don't want that to be part of it. Which I'm happy to facilitate, I guess, is the nice neutral business word. I don't know if you can hear that beeping sound. There's a regular beeping sound that's been going on and on. It's clear that the person who can take care of it is not going to take care of it. So when the Stevestream ends, I'm going to have to find out the source of that beeping sound, because I'm sure as hell not going to hear it all night long, and deal with it. Either smash it with a rock or pound on the door of the person who can deal with it. Say, come out here and deal with this. Take a second to deal with this. But maybe you can't hear it. I would hope you can't hear it. Jenny Park says, benevolent. This is meant to be a dictatorship. Mark says, whiskey and calzones for me, contrary to what Steve would have you believe. Oh, you're talking to other people now. I don't want to fight when under the influence of whiskey. I just loudly quote Robert Burns, which might be the same thing. You would, under the influence of whiskey, you would loudly quote Robert Burns, even if everyone in the room asked you to stop. And also, if you're a guest in my house, anyway, Gola Muad'Dib, it would be wine and calzones. Those are the parameters. If you don't like them, there's no call for you to be here. I'm not. You're wrong. Your claim. I know it's a joke, but your claim is wrong. You would read Robert Burns even if no one else in the room wanted you to, and if they asked you to stop, then the fighting would start. If whiskey were involved. So Gola Muad'Dib says, I just started reading Tony Hillerman's The Blessing Way. Do you like any of his books? I do. I like them. I don't any more than like them. I don't know. Maybe you'll like them a lot more than I did. Kevin J.N. Steve, I'm thinking of painting my reading nook, but I am a renter for the next year. As a fan of interior design, do you think this is a waste of money? Well, I think painting is almost always a waste of money. Yeah, but some people don't. Some people take a lot more notice of their surroundings. When I'm reading, I don't pay attention to my surroundings. So it'd be ridiculous for me to paint. Not that I know how, but if you're a renter, are you allowed to paint the space? Sometimes I've seen that's not true. Steve Ronstein says, did you enjoy Trump being interviewed by your favorite podcaster, Lex Friedman? I don't know what was going on in that interview. I have no idea. I mean, I know I know what happened. I watched it. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I did. I don't know why I watched Rings of Power season 2. I don't know why I watched that interview. Because the guy's crazy. He's not evil, just evil anymore. He's just nuts. He's just nuts. And I know that that in order for him to go on a show like Lex Friedman, it means he's not going to be confronted at all. No one's going to say, "Sir, what you just said is factually untrue." Or can you prove anything that you're saying? Not just this last controversial statement, but anything that you are saying at all. Anything that you're saying. Can you prove any of this? Because none of it is true. None of it is true. No one's going to say that. The venues are vetted ahead of time so that Trump knows they won't. It's not that. It's also not him admitting to election interference, which is the crime he's on trial for. He won't ever be on trial. He will never see the inside of a courtroom for that. He will never see the inside of a jail for it. But he admitted it on camera. He admitted that he lost the election. There are 100 people in jail right now because he didn't admit that. Now he's admitting it. But I'm talking about whatever else was going on there. Friedman, of course, was stoned off his ass like he always is. But it almost seemed like Trump was. And I don't get that impression. I don't get the impression that is what he would be like if he were. But all the slurring and the lisping and the I don't know, it seemed really weird. He had a different affect in that interview than any that I've ever seen. Tim's Too Many Books is back. NaNoWriMo used to have instructions about how to randomize your letters in a novel so that you could submit a document with nonsense with the same structure and word lengths. Sid says, check the NaNoWriMo website for the first time after watching a recent video and was horrified to see that they run a youth writing program. Seems very dubious considering last year's controversy. I know. They're not addressing any of this. And that is clearly their game plan, is just let it go. Let it boil over and burn itself out. The way to make this worse would be to respond to it in any way. So just don't respond to it in any way. Seems like a bad response to me. DT says, is being an aesthete dude broy? Yep. I get that minimalism sort of is, but what about the people going in the opposite direction? What's the opposite of minimalism? It's not aesthete. It's not being an aesthete. But all of that stuff is affectatious. All of it is done in order to elicit comments from other people, and the other people will always be men. So all of it is dude bro adjacent at the very least. That reading guy says, how long do your earworms last? Well, ordinarily they don't last long. A week, 2 weeks. But bye is still there. It's not going anywhere. I think it's just a part of me now. Gandhi Angle says, is there a specific edition of The Last Hurrah you recommend? An edition? Well, the University of Chicago Press did a lovely trade paperback that I think is still in print. That would be the only edition that's still in print, I think, and it's fine. With an introduction by Jack Beatty, who's terrific. So that would be good. Albert says something very strange is happening in the Stevestream. Nietzschean Wig isn't here. Yeah, Nietzschean Wig isn't here. Neither is the Spaminator. Dylan Matthias says, I've never read any of Hitchens' literary criticism. Is there a particular piece of his criticism worth reading to get the taste of his style? Well, book reviews. You know, if your library will have a copy of, arguably, I'm sure. So just book reviews. Read a couple of book reviews of his, and you'll see what I mean. That reading guy says a lot of writers get story ideas from their dreams. So they say. Tolstoy 111, more praise for Steve. I read Rabbit Run, and it leaves a well then, who gives a damn aftertaste. Updike assumes you find the milieu inherently fascinating. He assumes a lot. Yeah, he assumes that you think he's talented, and he assumes that you find the stuff he's talking about interesting before he makes it interesting. Those assumptions are wrong. So, some Okie dude says, read some of his forwards, like for Brave New World. I'm assuming that means Hitchens, not Updike. Max Blast Laker. That's a name I don't know. Hey, Steve, thanks to your recommendation of Dormandy's The Worst of Evils, I've caught the medical history bug. Would you consider making a medical history starter kit? Oh, my. Did you like The Worst of Evils? What a book. I might. I'll put that on the list, certainly. But I haven't done a starter kit from the list in quite some time. I should rectify that. Some Okie dude says, I hate the rabbit books. One of the most loathsome characters I've ever read in a book. DT says, did you enjoy Terry Gilliam's Baron Munchausen? I know you might not consider it a good film. It was awful uneven, right? I mean, you'd surely agree with that. It was awful uneven. Uh, I liked parts of it, but God, it was so self-indulgent. My God, as from a director's point of view, it was just the director indulging himself to the point where it hurt the movie. Uh, there are scenes that I like. There are little bits and pieces that I like. I of course I love the perfectly timed moment where Munchausen himself says this is precisely the sort of story that no one ever believes. But most of it, uh, it would most of it now would be called CGI bloat. Of course, CGI didn't exist at the time, but most of it would be that. Albert says, "Do you keep a journal? Did you once, or have you wanted to?" I keep a journal. Kept a journal for a very, very long time. Damien says, "Thank you for the recent Conan education. I didn't come across these books much, but always pick them up when I do." No, I don't come across them much. No, well, the little Conan mass market paperbacks are harder and harder to get. Mass market paperbacks, just in general, are harder and harder to get. They don't show up as not made anymore, and they don't show up as much anymore. So I'm mostly relying on ebooks. To We aren't going anywhere anyway. Uh, uh, let's see here. Street Medic. My wife is an artist, and we have been talking about doing a graphic novel. Making it isn't a problem, but how would we go about getting it published? Well, mainstream publishing, the odds are literally 1,000,000 to 1. You could publish it yourself. I imagine there's a lot more complications involved in self-publishing a graphic novel than in self-publishing a novel, but you could do it yourself, and that would be my strong recommendation. Mainstream, you have almost no chance, I would say. But if you want to do mainstream, then it would be the same thing. You work up a query letter and start pitching to agents. Just go to the writer's market at your library, go to the section on graphic novels, copy down all the agents that are currently accepting submissions, and just start that whole process. It's just cold as unknown people over the transom. That's a mighty uphill battle. Waiting at the station with a good book. What do you think of Titan Comics Conan titles, Steve? I like some of what they're no, I don't. No, most of what they're doing I don't like. I famously roasted Savage Sword of Conan #1 over Slow Fire. I have enjoyed the Conan the Barbarian that they're doing, and I really like the fact that the Jim Zub seems like a true believer. He seems like his heart and soul is in this. That was evident in Savage Sword of Conan #4, which I got and read, but have not talked about on this channel. Savage Sword of Conan #4 was interesting. It had virtually none of the flaws that I found in Savage Sword of Conan #1. And it was radically different from any other kind of Conan in comics project that I have seen. And an attempt to connect not only Robert E. Howard's signature characters, but a lot of his less than signature characters that have never been in comics before. I found that very, very interesting. It looked like this issue of Savage Sword of Conan was directly tied to events in Conan the Barbarian, and that it was going to continue in the next issue. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I may have to ask my silly houseboy to get me caught up, because it didn't repulse me. But most of what they've done so far, I've not particularly loved, except for what's his name, the artist on Conan the Barbarian, the one who started it all, the one who looks exactly like John Buscema. His artwork looks exactly like John Buscema, and he's so good. He's just so good. He does a pinup in Savage Sword of Conan #4 that's as good as the artwork anywhere else in the issue. Let's see here. Matt Sheridan says, "Howdy, folks." Mark, when I compared rereading to rewatching a movie, I was thinking of something like watching a few scenes for a movie on YouTube and then thinking, might as well watch the whole thing again. Yeah, well, I don't tend to do that. I always say that I will. I always tell myself I'll just dip into this book for a couple of scenes, and I don't end up doing it. I end up reading the whole thing. Or when you listen to a few songs from an album and just have to listen to the whole thing again. Sounds like you do something similar with books. I do. Steve Bronstein, I just noticed you're almost at 18.5 subs. It'll be 185K in a few years at this rate. No, it won't. Not a chance. Hassan says, Steve, are you a fan of John Crowley? Yes, very much so. I don't think I recall you ever mentioning him on the channel. No, I am a big fan. Leo Percara, hello, Steve. When you played chess in the 1800s, were you able to see a lot of moves ahead or did you commit to memory and theory? I never could play. I can't play chess with memory and theory. No. Uh, for me, usually the way that I most enjoy games and the way that I'm most sure of winning is by knowing my opponent. So people who do exhibition chess where they've never met their opponent before, or the guy in Harvard Square who has a time clock on a table right there in front of Aubin Pan, I can't imagine that. Matt Sheridan says, going to start my beginner to thesis class on Monday. Oh God, better you than me. Oh my God. I hope you're holding up well under all this academia, because it's bringing back horrifying memories. Oh, the chat jumped again. Let's bash some of these things out, shall we? Gandhi Angles just discovered Amazon is releasing a film adaptation of the Nickel Boys. It's Amazon that's doing it, so you're going to get the Nickel Boys, only the two boys are going to be girls. So it's going to be really weird. How are you going to keep that title? Street Medic says, I have most of the old Omni magazines, and they have some really good science fiction I've never read anywhere else. Yeah, a lot of those Omni magazines have not been reprinted. I don't know why that is. I really wish that we had Omni magazine books. I know it'd be a copyright nightmare, but do it. Do the copyright nightmare. Find out who owns all that artwork. Find out who owns all those stories, or their literary executives. Get it all together and dig up someone who is involved with Omni Magazine who can write an introduction and just make an anthology. I don't know why that hasn't happened. Some Okie Dude says, we're also getting a criminal adaptation of Amazon 2 from Amazon 2. Can't wait. Criminal? AMNE says, I'm almost done with The Tale of Genji, and wow, what a magical and beautiful but melancholy book. Thanks for speaking so eloquently and passionately about it, thereafter pushing me to read it. Oh, good. Gola Muad'Dib says, do you think Wheel of Time is as bad as Rings of Power? No. Wheel of Time makes lots of bad mistakes, but it also does some good things and has some really talented people in it and behind it. Literally nothing about Rings of Power is any good at all. Literally nothing. The showrunners, the writers, the directors, the actors, nothing in it is any good. A clean sweep. That's not true for Wheel of Time. Tolstoy 111 says, Entertainment Weekly called Rabbit at Rest the best novel of the 1990s. Well, not with my permission, they did. Jonathan Matthews says, what did you mean by the movie is almost always better than the novel? Is that because most novels suck, or did you mean something else? Yes, most novels suck and also are in love with the sound of their own voice, whereas a movie has to cut that stuff out. Waiting for the station with a good book. I have decided to participate in NaNoWriMo this year despite the lunacy. I will just ask Steve for help and encourage everyone to do so as well. Well, waiting at the station with a good book is encouraging you all to ask Steve for help. You are all encouraged to do that. If waiting at the station is also encouraging you all to join NaNoWriMo despite the scandal, don't do it. Perfectly okay if you want to do it, but don't do it. Just don't do it. Don't encourage them. They are an AI farm. So don't do it. As was Bookless Pete, I know in his video on the subject, said that don't be on Team Skynet. Don't do that. So, but if the part of your email about encouraging everybody to ask me for help, by all means, too. My email is on every video. Albert says the elven rings were under the influence of Sauron, but the elves noticed and took them off, didn't they? But of course, this took me aback. They never acted like the One Ring. No, the elven rings were not ever under the influence of Sauron. The reason that they took them off is because they realized that the One Ring gave Sauron the ability to know what they were thinking and where they were, not to dominate them. The three elven rings were never touched by Sauron. They were made without him. They are pure, which is why they are forces for good. They are not the One Ring. They are not my precious, and they don't have that kind of effect on their bearers. They just don't. So, and the showrunners are saying yes, they do. And this isn't a question of a subject that's lost in the midst of some appendix somewhere. This is directly contingent on the Peter Jackson movies, the only things they've seen. They haven't read the book. And that's not the way the rings are in the Peter Jackson movies. So they're just saying, this Tolkien guy sucks, and we're going to fix him. Street Medic says, so what do you think about so many so-called influencers being exposed as Russian assets? It's been a joy to me all day to watch the videos. And the reaction videos have only just started. People are still absorbing this whole I love it. I absolutely love it. Anything that can humiliate or inconvenience Tim Pool in any way is fine by me. Anything that can do that. Dave Rubin, an obvious 5-pack a day moron. I don't really care about him. Tim Pool is a nefarious figure. So if he can be inconvenienced or worse by this story, then that is fine by me. So seeing him get roasted all day has been great, and that's just going to continue all weekend. Albert says nobody was ever drawn to them that way. No, right. Michael Lombardo says, is there a particular Shakespearean role that you identify with or played on stage? I've never played a role on stage for Shakespeare. No. And I would like to think, I would hope that my Shakespearean role is not Falstaff. That would be great. but I don't know who else it would be. Evil Joshua says, Steve, which of is your favorite run on the X-Men? I'm looking to get back into the comics. Believe it or not, I know this is going to be, this is really weird. It's really niche. It's Chris Claremont on Extreme X-Men, which is, I acknowledge, not a good run. It doesn't. It relies completely on your encyclopedic knowledge of 30 years of comic books. Claremont can't write anything that doesn't do that. So it relies completely on that, which means it's a bad run of a comic book because it's a complete force field to outsiders. But Salvador Larroca's artwork is just so beautiful all throughout that I love that. That and also there was a period for the original X-Men right before Neil Adams took over that I really kind of like. The team tensions and the personalities were starting to become really exaggerated. The core cast of characters was really stopping being students. That was starting to feel a little awkward. And I like that. I wish that if the book had been doing well, then maybe they'd have got a writer who would have capitalized that instead of just poof adulting these people so that they're really, I mean, Neil Adams can't draw a child. so all of his people are not only adult, but super sexy. They aren't anybody's students anymore. But right before that, it was really good, I thought. Anti-Gaia says, hey, Steve, what did you think of the new indictment against the media group that was funding people like Tim Pool and Benny Johnson? Were you as non-surprised as I was? I wasn't surprised at all, no. The thing that surprised me was that hearing it come from Merrick Garland. Hearing the actual DOJ having a press conference on it. But it didn't surprise me at all. Tim Pool has been doing Russian propaganda just straight up on his channel for a year. Just straight up. Saying that Ukraine is the greatest threat to the world that exists today. Just straight out of the Kremlin. Matt Sheridan says, I must say that I was not surprised at all that Tim Pool and Dave Rubin were paid to spout Russian talking points. Their bottom line is money, and they are career grifters. And it sounds like it was a lot of money. It sounds like it was a lot of money. If you don't have any principles, you wouldn't need a tenth of it to move you. And these people don't have any principles. Street Medic says, Tim Pool is calling himself a victim. What a crock. Yeah, he's calling himself a victim. He's saying, well, I was saying this stuff already. I mostly talk about games on my channel. But he still calls himself a liberal. So does Dave Rubin. Morons. That they think anyone can't see through it. Except that they managed to fleece a gigantic audience that doesn't see through it. DT says, Macaulay is touted for his style, too. Is anything in his style worth a read? Are you asking me if Macaulay is worth a read? Yeah, his style is beautiful. Good God. Gandhi Angle says, did you like Squid Game? No. Tolstoy 111 says, is there a current push for a queer James Bond? It will happen eventually. I don't doubt it. It doesn't matter to me. It's part of the Hollywood Studios mandates. It's part of their incorporation. They would be in violation of their own laws if they didn't do this. So unless somebody comes, the heads of the studios would have to change that with the majority vote of their stockholders. And that's not going to happen. So yeah, it is going to happen. Unfortunately, I don't care. The number one thing that 21st century Hollywood has done is make people not care about these beloved IPs. People don't care about Predator. They don't care about the Terminator. They don't care about Birds of Prey. They don't care about Star Wars. They don't care about Star Trek. They don't care about James Bond because they killed him. They don't care. Fans, the people who would make these things a Hollywood success, don't care anymore. That's what Hollywood has done. Anti-Guy says, I'm kind of excited to see the new DC Penguin series on HBO. You shouldn't be. Matt Sheridan says, I believe Lauren Chen is also knowingly accepted money while knowing it was from Russian oligarchs. I want to go way out on a limb here on this whole RT story and say that all these people knew exactly what they were doing. That Tim Pool knew exactly where this money was coming from, exactly where it was coming from, and gladly amped up the coverage. That Dave Rubin, dumb as he is, dumb as a rock, knew exactly where this money was coming from. Think about your own life. Okay, think about your own life. You're going through your own life. You decide the weekend's coming up. You're going to go to the ATM, put your card in, and check your balance just to be sure you know where you stand for the weekend. You hit check balance, and the machine tells you that you have $171,000 in your checking account. You are not going to take your card out of that machine and say, great, fantastic. Well, I'm going to do what I was going to do anyway for the weekend. You would make it your life's mission to find out what's going on here. Where did that money come from? I guarantee you they did the same thing. So this victim business is just ridiculous. And Lauren Chen is as guilty as sin. Absolutely as guilty as sin. DT says, how good is S.J. Perlman? Really good. Is he really good and funny? I know Woodhouse is still king, but is there anyone near his level? Perlman is really good. You'll really enjoy him. Street Medic says 117 now. It keeps going up and down. Was this number here for this Stevestream? William Doyle, I wish Steve had watched the D&D movie for Garb August. Well, maybe you should ask him. J. Scott Phillips, I see 120 watching the Stevestream. Don't you think such devout followers deserve a blob watch? I'm sure that a lot of them don't know what a blob watch is. A blob watch is something we do for Scotty, where we check the weather. I don't know what's going on with my devices. My laptop and my iPads are suddenly they all now have this focus mode with a half moon circle that's timing me out of things and stopping me from looking at things. I don't know what that is. I never installed it. I never activated it, and I can't seem to get it off these machines. I'm going to have to wait for tech help to nuke it from these machines. But hopefully it will allow me to look anyway. That would be great. No idea if it will or not. Yeah, it's just this half moon, this setting moon icon at the top of every screen. Any of you know what that is and can come up with a really quick, it's called focus mode. If any of you know a quick, easy way to just disable it, that would be great. So what do we got here for blobs? I don't know if the half moon thing will let me do this. No, it's not showing me a screen at all. Here we go here. All right, so your neck of the woods is clean, of course. We do have activity. All around there, we've got activity. That's a lot. That's a lot of stuff. That's probably outwash from a string of tropical depressions that came one after another right in this direction. I doubt that any of that's probably all going to wash inland. I doubt that any of that is going to make its way to New England. And you can see that New England has virtually nothing on the horizon. That blob over the Great Lakes might do something for us, but I doubt it. I really doubt it. I don't think we have anything to look forward to, any weather to look forward to, and that's too bad because it's really dry here. Steve Bronstein, what are you hoping to see at the presidential debate on Tuesday? I won't be. I would hope that I won't be watching. I would hope that I won't be watching. I already know what I'm going to see from Trump because he has really deteriorated. All he does is just lie like some sort of drink-soused old grandfather. Just sitting there in an easy chair saying, yeah, you send your kid off to grade school and 2 days later they come home and they've had an operation at 8 years old. Just saying that millions of people from lunatic asylums are pouring over the border every single day. Just ridiculous stuff that it isn't even worth fact checking. It's just fantasy, and no one checks him on it at all. So if I watch on Tuesday, I know that Trump will do that. He will lie incessantly, and he will not be checked on it by any of the moderators who should check that. It's not their job to sit there in silence like the statues on Easter Island. They should say, Mr. Trump, you just told a lie. They shouldn't wait for Kamala Harris to do that. They should do it themselves. She'll probably get in some good zingers. Who knows? I have no idea. I I don't know. I don't. I will probably end up watching. Anti-Guy says, Steve, what did you think of Jack Smith's new superseding indictment? I think it's largely pointless, but it was interesting to see. MANNE says, yes, it was just super silly of them to try and cover up their extremely lazy and bad writing with fan-recognizable aspects of Tolkien's work. Well, partially they're trying to cover things up with the recognizable member berries from Tolkien. Another part of it is that they just want to tell Lord of the Rings, only in a better way, a more inclusive way. And they just haven't been able to do it. They're not legally allowed to do it. But that won't stay true. Sooner or later, Amazon will own the rights to Lord of the Rings. And then we will get what I predicted years ago. I hope you all remember that. I predicted a black female Gandalf, and we will get that. Let's see here. The Arab Cowboy. I went to private school, and we all took part in NaNoWriMo. I wrote a 50K word novella at 15. Sad to see what NaNoWriMo, the company, has become. Well, that's an amazing feat, but yeah, it is sad. I don't think there's any going back. We just have to find writing communities of our own. David Galloway says, favorite Hitchcock movie? Well, that would be Rope. Anti-Guy says, wait a minute, though, Steve. Does it have to be red wine, Sauvignon Blanc, instead allowed? White wine? Please. You think I'm gonna endure the tedium of your conversation drinking water? Tolstoy 111. Do you like The Liars Club by Mary Carr? Remember the overwhelming acclaim it got? No, I don't. Dylan Matthias says, every time I have tried to watch Lex Friedman interview, even when he's interviewing someone I like, I've been stunned at how shallow and weak-willed he is. He's Joe Rogan without charisma. Yeah, he's a moron. And his audience doesn't seem to care that he is insulting them by doing all of his interviews stoned. They don't seem to care about that. Albert says, I went to a performance of Othello yesterday. It was magnificent. I love Laurence Olivier's Othello, but going to a play in person is always more fun. I agree. Richardson reads, hello all. Matt Sheridan, Trump seemed like he was on something in that Lex interview, slurring his words and seemed to have trouble keeping his eyes open. Yeah, it was really noticeable. Of course, did any news show comment on it? No, they didn't. No, did any newspaper comment on it? Did the New York Times say that the leading Republican candidate looked obviously sedated in a public interview? No, they did not. No. Street Medic says, I have a ton of old Alfred Hitchcock mass market paperback anthologies. Good Lord. I haven't seen those in the wild in a long time. MANNE says, do you think Count of Monte Cristo is overwritten? Because I'm about 200 pages in and I find his writing pretty economical so far. Am I missing something? Or do the sloggy parts come later? It's remarkable how readable that 1,200 page book is. I don't think it's overwritten at all. No. DT says, Steve, you're always up for giving good advice. How do I get my own surly houseboy? Take it if I can offer free rent and board, and everything will work itself out. Well, I got mine at a blue light special at Kmart years ago. I was told that particular model would not still be working all this time later. I got lucky. Testing. I don't know how anybody does without, though. Who pays your bills? Who organizes your paperwork? Anyway, testing says, hi from Ireland, Steve. Whereabouts in Ireland? Thinking about starting a booktube channel on numerous genres soon. You should. Do you have any advice? I find it difficult to record videos as I want them to be as perfect as possible. Well, if you're talking about you want them to be as perfect from a tech point of view, perfectly edited, perfectly lighted, perfectly framed, and whatnot, well, then you're coming at booktube from a different angle than I am. I obviously don't aim for perfection. That's fairly clear in my videos. So if you're looking at it from an AV standpoint there, where you care about it as a video production, well, then you'll want to get all your ducks in a row first so that all of that happens. I don't understand that because that makes it into a lot of work, and you work hard anyway. Everybody has lots of work to do anyway. Why would you add work like that? But you should, no matter how you do it, you should give it a try. Definitely give it a try. It's a lot of fun. Ryan says, hi, Steve. Finally started Duck's Newburyport today, 200 pages in, and I'm finding her voice quite calming. Calming. Oh, all right. Well, that might work. One View Cornwall, Laurence Olivier's Hamlet, and then some sort of cartoon. Albert says his Hamlet is marvelous. MANNE says, yes, the Chicago University Press edition of Last Fire is great. Street Medic says, I should start a booktube channel about all the old books I have going all the way back to my old Scholastic paperbacks from grade school. DT says, are there any old sitcoms you think were good at the time? I Dream of Jeannie, The Dick Van Dyke Show. Yeah, I do. Not those two, but yeah, of course I do. There are plenty of great old sitcoms. I think I Love Lucy is great. Not just the Superman episode, but all of it, but also All in the Family. The Odd Couple, and a bunch of others. The Mary Tyler Moore Show. Tolstoy 111 says CGI did exist in the late 80s. The first use of it in the feature film was the Genesis planet sequence in The Wrath of Khan. No, it didn't. That's okay. Thanks for the Pete entry. You know exactly what I mean by CGI, and it did not exist in the 80s in any effective way. So it did not. You know exactly the point I'm making with The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Terry Gilliam had no access to what we would consider CGI. So, but anyway, but then again, Tolstoy 111 is fond of flatly contradicting me on erroneous points. So it feels like a chat tradition. Kevin Toll reads, if you had to choose one Stephen King book to read, which one, Steve? Okay. That's perilously close to a have you read question. I have read everything by Stephen King. I've been following his career from its miserable beginning to its miserable current state. The one that I would recommend would be Salem's Lot. Anti-Guy says, is Steve excited about the upcoming football game? Well, you'd have to ask him, wouldn't you? Daniel Cox says, who are your favorite literary sheriffs / detectives / law enforcement? I favor Walt Longmire, Joe Pickett, Harry Bosch, Luke Davenport, Dave Robichaux. Any recommendations to explore? No, you pretty much hit it. You pretty much hit it. What's the one you're leaving out? Kate Shugak. Is that it? Kate Shugak. They're Alaskan mysteries. Really good. And Kate is a wonderful character. I'm not sure I'm getting her last name right. Who does those? I don't think that series is still going on. Set in Alaska, I believe. Really good. Much along the lines of the stuff that you're describing. Street Medic says, the three essential figures in medical history are Galen, Vesalius, and Harvey. Back before I retired, I used Harvey's technique for finding valves when I started IVs. Okay. I disagree, but that's all right. Some Okie dude, you're not asking. Some Okie dude says, I quite enjoy Patrick Kenzie and Sherlock Holmes myself. Hannah's Books is here. I'm thinking about watching Turtle Diary tonight on YouTube, and we'll be thinking about you. Some Okie dude says, Criminal is a comic series from Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. Great stuff. Moni Doyle says, have you dog-eared the pages of a book you've read many times? Yeah, I routinely do it. The Arab Cowboy says, thank you for your book recommendation, Steve. I just started reading The Persian Boy and bought the Canterbury Tales in both Middle English and Modern English, translated at the used bookstore. Oh my, just started The Persian Boy. How wonderful. I was naturally thinking of it because William Gwynn on his BookTube channel is doing a series of the best 40. I think 40 is the number that he picked, best historical novels of all time. I immediately wanted to make a list of my own. I might still do that. Hassan says, what's your favorite John Crowley book? I fall in love with Little Big and more recently Egypt, so eager to dive into his other books. It's predictable of me, but Little Big is my favorite. Follow Smoke says, did you know there's an Anno Dracula comic book from Titan Books? I did not. DT says, what is your favorite work of Hitchens? Is it the same thing as his best work? Well, no concentrated work. I like the book reviews in Arguably. That's my favorite stuff by him. DT says, did Hitchens write anything that you found irredeemable, or anything close? Yeah. Well, not irredeemable, no. But if you're going to take a shot at something, it should be a kill shot. And you're only going to do a kill shot if you can concentrate long enough and hard enough to do that. And you can't do that if you're an alcoholic. So the missionary position and also No One Left to Lie To should have been, also the Trial of Henry Kissinger. That came the closest. But the other two should have been home runs. They would have been if, not irredeemable, no, but there are plenty of his books that frustrate me. Let's even talk about the little Tom Paine thing. I have no idea what that is. Could have been something. But Some Okie dude says, I enjoyed Mortality a lot. Yes, Mortality was pretty strong. We get to see a less arrogant, more human side of him in that one. I agree. Hannah's book says, I loved Little Big. Anti-Guy says, I like Hitchens' book, Excoriating Henry Kissinger. The Arab Country says, a cowboy says, bought a shirt that says, don't trust AI, with a picture of John Connor. I'm really throwing it in everyone's face. Anti-Guy says, I love it too, Steve. Tim Pool is such an odious person. Yeah, he's horrible. He's horrible. He's even worse than a lot of the lefty bread tubers who are criticizing him, all of whom were happy to take his money and fly out to his compound. Lance from the Serfs, that still bothers me. Calls this guy, unironically calls this guy a monster for 2 years on his channel, and then goes to his compound solely to boost Lance's own numbers, and it did. So you're willing to take the monster's money, and paid his viewers Lance's viewers the incredible insult of going there unprepared. So he got his ass handed to him. It drives me crazy. Max says, the worst of evils was bleak, but amazing reading. I read it while in Edinburgh. It took me to the Surgeon's Hall. Yeah. Edinburgh's a place to read that book. Street Medic says, I saw your video about the Legion of Superheroes. I am also a huge fan. Another story series that's almost forgotten is the Atomic Knights. The Atomic Knights is a little bit of a clunky story, though. A little bit dorky. The best adaptation of it that I ever saw was done years and years ago. DC did this weird 3-volume square-bound graphic novel series called Twilight. The only reason I got it is because it was Jose Luis Garcia Lopez artwork. It was just gorgeous artwork. But it was them. I forget who the writer was, but he took all sorts of the beings and creatures from DC's future, before the Legion, but after the Justice League. That 1,000-year period that we have Space Cabbie and the Atomic Knights, a whole bunch of other things, Rip Hunter, and put them all in that one book. And it's very cynical. It's very 90s. I loved it. I thought it was great. That's pretty much my favorite rendition of Atomic Knights. Hannah's book says, you should play the R and J's nurse on stage. Oh my, the nurse. Should I really? Why? Oh, why? Is that because I'm always shaking my finger at all the rest of you and saying it would be a very weak dealing? Is that it? Am I scolding you? The Arab Cowboy says, I played Puck and Yakimo in 2 Shakespeare plays I took part in. Typecast, I know. Anti-Guy says, here's the better Shakespeare question. Which Shakespeare villain is Donald Trump most akin to? None. Street Medic, Tim Pool will hopefully go to prison. Some Okie dude says, what did Tim Pool do? Tim Pool was revealed in a DOJ announcement today as being one of the many right-wing grifters who took a huge amount of money from Russian intelligence operatives, from a Russian propaganda mill, in order to repeat Russian propaganda to an American audience. A huge amount of money. We're talking about $100,000, $200,000 a week. And Tim Pool is claiming that I had no idea. The DOJ announcement, Merrick Garland's announcement, made it clear that the DOJ is not saying that these people knew what they were doing. But I think that is just them keeping cards close to their vest in case they are issuing indictments later on. But there's no chance that they didn't know. Dave Rubin is as dumb as a box of rocks, and he must have known. You don't not chase down the source of, the meaning of, the nature of $200,000 that show up in your bank account. Even if you're really wealthy, you don't do that. Tim Pool is claiming today that he's just an innocent victim. He had no idea what this stuff was. I was played. We'll see. Kevin Toll reads his favorite short story of all time. I have no idea. Do you have any idea how many short stories I've read? I have no idea. None at all. Science fiction maybe would be The Ugly Chickens by Howard Waldrop. Max says, on a random note, I wondered your opinion of Bernard Rollin and the Unheeded Cry. Don't know that at all. Do I? That doesn't ring a bell. The Unheeded Cry sounds familiar. Also, any similar books you could recommend apart from Singer? Oh, is that what I remember? The Unheeded Cry is about the animal rights? I'm drawing a blank. so I don't think I can help you. Shahar says relieved Tale of Genji in the mail. Received Tale of Genji in the mail yesterday. Now I have to find time to read it. It's a pretty big book. Mike C says, is the Steve Donnie who hosted NaNoWriMo going to be in November also? I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still hashing it out. I don't know. I'd like to do some sort of writing thing in November, just because we're all geared up for November. So it won't be a major mental shift. I'm geared up for November. Janet Wortman and I had a plan for NaNoWriMo. Who thought it that they would betray all our trust in between then and now? Gandhi says, thoughts on Putin endorsing Kamala Harris? DT says, is Werner Herzog's novel The Twilight World, is it readable? He likes to walk around. Is he dude bro? Probably not, since he's a real deal. Rather, is he dude bro influencer? He's pure dude bro. Yeah. Steve Bronstein, speaking of nefarious grifters, how about that Tulsi Gabbard? Yes. Yes. Although one delight at a time. One delight at a time. I'm watching Tim Pool get smacked in the face by every commentator in the world today. That's as much as I asked for. MANNE says, can't wait to tackle the tale of the Heike next. Well, okay, it's very different. It's very different, but you've at least got a great new translation. The Arab Cowboy says, have you read James Bond novels? Are they any good? Okay. Well, I was hoping, right? We were all hoping that we would get through a Stevestream without a have you read question. And that if I got a have you read question, it would be something really obscure. Have I read any James Bond novels is not as bad as have I read Herodotus, which was happened to the last Stevestream, but it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. For those of you who are brand new to my channel, a have you read question is when you ask me if I've read something that's sold into millions of copies and has been a cultural mainstay for decades, centuries, maybe millennia. I do nothing but read. I've done nothing but read. 150 pages an hour on average for an average of 10 hours every day. I've done nothing but do that since before your parents were born. That's the backdrop that makes me bridle against a have you read question. You're watching me on this video and you're asking me if I've ever read a James Bond novel. I'm going to move on so that I don't go apoplectic. I'm going to move on. Sid says, is Don Powell worth reading? Yes, but not as much as Gore Vidal says. I just noticed that she got a couple of thick Library of America volumes on the strength of Gore Vidal, on the strength of that one article by Gore Vidal, and nothing else. But nevertheless, her books are worth reading. There's some strong ones, there are a lot of weak ones, but they are worth reading. Street Medic says, as someone who has seen military experience, I think Tulsi Gabbard is a disgrace to the uniform. Tolstoy 111 says, a very smart critic, Tim Page, loves Don Powell. Albert says, Trump is a bit of an Edmund from King Lear. We can only hope. Kevin Compton says, speaking of Falstaff and whether novels are typically better than movies, what did you think of Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet? And come to think of it, Mel Gibson's Hamlet. Heretical opinion on my part, Mel Gibson's Hamlet is really bad, but it's better than Branagh's Hamlet. Branagh's Hamlet is almost unsalvageable. It's so bad. Kevin JN says, Steve, open settings on Apple device, scroll down to focus icon, click and set focus mode off. Right. I Googled it the first time I saw this thing. And when I do exactly that, I go to settings, I go to focus, and there is no off button. There is no option to press off. There is no option to turn off on. There is no option to get rid of this thing. Albert says, Iago could work, but he is too clever for Trump. DT says, is Eastwood's Unforgiven, in your opinion, a good movie? What did you think of it? I thought it was a good movie. Yeah. It's not my kind of movie, but I thought it was well done. Anti-Guy says, Putin has also endorsed Biden. It's tongue-in-cheek. He's trying to imply he can't play Kamala like a fiddle. Tolstoy 111 says, do you like... Here we go. Saltykov's The History of a Town. There is a new P&V translation. Monet Doyle says, the Eastwood movie Unforgiven was quite good. J. Scott Phillips, the crescent moon focus icon is for Do Not Disturb. Swipe down from the upper right corner of your screen and tap the focus to change the setting. I do. I tap on that. I pull down the menu. I get the focus bar on the side that shows me all sorts of settings, but no offsetting. No way to say, I want this removed from my computer experience. I don't want this as part of my iPad at all. I don't want to set a time. I don't want to set a schedule. I don't want to say that I don't have a schedule. I want to remove this thing from the whole thing. I want to delete it. I see no option to do that. None at all. What? Oh no, the chat jumped again. All right. Well, let's go back to where we were. We were talking to Scotty here. Where was he? Oh my God, there are a lot of people in this chat. Oh, that's neat. Let's see here. We were looking at J. Scott Phillips. There we go. Albert. Putin loved Kamala's smile. He said you can hear the Russian laugh in those words. Monedoro says it's supposed to rain in Georgia today. Yeah, I've got a lot of rain. You just did a blob watch. There's a lot of weather in your area. DT says, what do you think of the movie Brazil by Terry Gilliam? Is that one more enjoyable for you? I enjoyed it until some moments which just went a little icky. It's good, but it's a lot of stuff all meshed together. It doesn't really cohere. Anti-Guy says Putin can laugh all he wants. He's been getting murked lately by Zelensky. Right. J. Scott Phillips says if you go to settings for focus, you can turn off share across devices. Yes, I can. I hit share. I turned off share across devices. It doesn't get rid of the icon. It doesn't get rid of the function at all. I want it gone. I want it gone from the device. And it still seems to be operative. Even if I'm not sharing it across devices, it's still there on all the devices. It's just not shared between them. I want it gone. It's new. And it seems to be interfering with a lot. I can't help but wonder if maybe that is what interfered with my first attempt at this return live stream. Richardson Reed says, I heard you were Deb's surly houseboy. Never. We didn't do housework. We're too busy getting it on. XJZ, thoughts on Tim Geel and his biography of Henry M. Stanley? Thought it was quite good. No idea what you're talking about. Anti-Guy says, Happy Days is probably my favorite of those old TV land sitcoms. MANE says, would you consider Anthony Trollope's The Way We Live Now for a read aloud? I think it would be super fun despite its length. It was one of the first things I considered, but I've talked about it a lot on my channel. Now, I have some YouTube friends who say it doesn't matter. 90% of your audience is churning over, so it doesn't matter how much. They're not going to go back and look. And also, I could swear that I read it out loud as well on this channel. Did I not? It was one of the first things that came to mind. I would love it, of all things, to do that. DT says, I've heard many times that the classics is a great conversation. Is it an apt metaphor, or is there something to it in your opinion? The classics, you mean classic books? All books are a conversation. I'm not sure I understand the question. Jonathan Matthews, Steve, thoughts on Game of Thrones / Song of Ice and Fire? The books, I like them fine. Shame that George R.R. Martin didn't live to finish the series. There's only, I think, probably only one book left in the series. Could have wrapped it up in that time. It's a shame that he didn't do it. That reading guy says, how's your book Ragnarok going? Have you decided what to get rid of? Will David Murphy be helping you? There's a lot of speculation that David Murphy is coming here soon. I don't know where that speculation is coming from. But I had a very signature bit of help with Book Ragnarok this morning, thanks to the good folks at the Brattle Bookshop. And it's just going to continue. It's just going to continue. It's going fine. It's been usurped in the spotlight because I've suddenly decided to rearrange the little book room. But nevertheless, it's going fine. DT says, do you have a favorite list of the canon besides your own wonderful list? Who has a better list of the canon? Harold Bloom, your 100 books on Goodreads, etc. DT, are you asking if I think that someone's list of the canon is better than mine? No, I don't think that anyone's list of the canon is better than mine. Anti-Guy says, which play are we starting with for Shake Timber? I haven't done anything for Shake Timber yet. Kevin Compton says, as for which Shakespearean baddie Trump most resembles, in 2016 it had to be Richard III, or hot take, maybe a populist like Henry V, but later Lear. No, there's nothing Shakespearean about Donald Trump. Albert says, Lear isn't the Shakespearean baddie, though, and even though Richard is vilified, he isn't the Shakespearean baddie. Okay. Okay. All right. Richard's not a baddie. Okay, great. Nick Piccarilli says, have you gotten around to checking out Herodotus' last issue? No, I'm still working on it. I once I'm done, I'm still working on it. And once I'm done with that, I've got to knock out these James Bond novels that I hear so much about. Let's see here. MANE says, by the way, would you recommend Fritzhoff Saga by Esaias Tegner? Fritzhoff Saga, I definitely recommend. I have the Longfellow translation, and I very much recommend that. Anti-Guy says, yeah, but Richard is hobbled, so his handicap gives him some element of sympathy. I feel none towards Trump. Street Medic says, so my wife is off to trivia. Her team is unbeaten so far. That Reading Guy says, what did you like about the Magic Mountain? What am I missing? My reading buddy didn't get it either. I need to reread it. Well, if you're not seeing it, don't reread it just because you think you should. Find something that you immediately do like. Follow Smoke says, speaking of the death of mass market paperbacks, did you see DC Comics introducing their DC Compacts line? They're basically mass market paperback comics. I saw it, but I haven't actually seen one in person yet. I saw listings for them, but I don't know what they look like. I might be interested in getting one of them. Kevin Compton says, yeah, I know Lear is not a baddie for sure. I misspoke. Prince Hal, I love him and I have opinions about him. He's for sure the biggest dude bro in the canon. Sorry, we were talking in the chat, Steve. Yeah, talking in the chat and also talking erroneously in the chat. It's like a twofer. A list of numbers or letters or eyes. Steve, I enjoy your recommendation of Slezkine's The House of Government. Can you recommend any good nonfiction books about Eastern Germany and the Stasi? Well, last year there was a book about Eastern Germany that I quite liked. Britta didn't like it, and she's a hell of a lot closer to knowing whether or not it's right than I am. But I quite liked it last year. What was the name of that thing? I thought it was good. If you go to Amazon and type in East Germany, it'll be the first thing that comes up. It's probably coming out in paperback soon. Street Medic says, oh no, Street Medic. The chat disappeared. Why do a lot of people think they should keep making James Bond movies? Beats me. It's a great question. I wish more people thought that way. It beats me. I have no idea. Yeah, James Bond, also King Arthur. Why do people, or Robin Hood? I don't get it at all. I wish they'd stop. I wish people would just stop doing that. MANNE, yeah, I got the Royal Tyler translation of The Tale of Heike. Loved his translation of Genzi. Also, my name is pronounced like money, except replace the E sound at the end with E from bed. So many. Mene. Mene. Is that right? I don't know. I don't know if that's right or not. Why can't you be called Patrick, like a normal person? Tolstoy 111, do you like H.L. Mencken? Is there more to him than those acerbic quotes? I don't like Mencken, no. I tried real hard. I got that beautiful Library of America 2-volume set. I tried real hard, but I don't like his posturing. I just don't like him at all. It feels like a void. It feels like a case where I might be wrong. Him and James Thurber, it's the time period. It's the faux intellectualism. It's just none of it works for me. That Reading Guy, Steve, in our deference, have you read questions of what normal non-freakish readers ask each other all the time? New subs can't be expected to know your reading superpowers. Okay. Yeah. New subs can't be expected to know everything. Right. Look at me. Listen to me talk. I assume that anyone in this chat is not finding me for the first time. So they've watched at least a couple of videos of mine. Herodotus? James Bond? You don't need to know every bit of lore to know that there is no defense. No, not when it's that obvious. No, there is no defense. Kevin J. says, I think you need to access focus off on your phone. Phone is the master of your devices. Hope this helps. Okay, but will the phone have a way to turn it off? And how would I even know? So I would go to settings. focus. Yes, focus does not give me an option to turn it off. It does not do that. See? Focus. Do not disturb at the top there says that it's on. I tap on that, and I get all of this of how to customize do not disturb, but no option on simply turning it off. I do not have an option to turn it off. I can set schedules for it, but I can't delete it. I can't say I don't want this at all. So why is that? Why is that? Nope, there is no offsetting in there. So I appreciate the tech help, but it's not, the option isn't there. Sid says, I asked about Powell because I just read that Gore Vidal article. Yeah. I did get the feeling that his rapturous praise must have something to do with him being friends with her. Well, and also wanting to be a tastemaker. He wanted to be a tastemaker. He wanted to say, Vidal fell in late in life. He fell into the same corrosive habit that Harold Bloom fell into, of saying, well, all the things that are all so boring and sold out and bad. The real literature I know about, but you don't. And I'll pick one name out of a hat. It's usually Gil Sorrentino, but in his case, it was Don Powell. There's this towering giant that none of you have ever heard of. It's so disgraceful that they don't teach books anymore. And it's mostly just posturing. It's mostly just empty. So from a guy who never read Trollope, never a single Trollope in his life, and he's lecturing you that Don Powell is this undiscovered Twain. Anyway, Patrick, speaking of movies that are better than their books, I think I like the Harry Potter movies better than their books. Yeah. I think they removed a lot of unnecessary subplots. Yeah, the movies are much better than the books. Street Medic says, Halloween is coming up. What's the best vampire movie? I actually think it would be the original TV miniseries of Salem's Lot. I actually think that would be the one for me. J. Scott Phillips, you can add a do not disturb function to block all have you read questions. That would be great. D Temple 54 says, Claudius, excuse me, read along. A read along would work. A read aloud would not. I don't think Claudius is old enough. It's not in the common domain. That reading guy says, what about the reading some Robert Louis Stevenson out loud? That's definitely possible. That would certainly work as filler for the rest of this year, because the way we live now is way too old to do this year. The Arab Cowboy says, forgive my ignorance, Steve. I'm only a poor couple-of-week-old subscriber. I know not what I do. You are forgiven. But nevertheless, and you're forgiven. Also, you're not the worst offender. We've seen the worst possible offender already. In an earlier Stevestream, someone asked, have you ever read Herodotus? I went to school with Herodotus. James Bond is not quite so bad, especially if you're brand new to my channel and you're mainly looking at just the outward appearance, this old guy talking. You might think that I'm a snob, that I'm a book snob. If you're not paying attention, if you haven't watched a lot of the channel, people who've watched a lot of the channel will know I'm the exact opposite of a book snob. But if you're judging by appearances, you might think even vaguely professorial. I don't think so. I would hate to think so, but maybe you would. In which case you might think, well, the James Bond novels he might not have thought they were ever worth reading. So you are forgiven. You are definitely forgiven. But it's absolutely not true. I am a far more omnivorous reader than anybody here, or than anybody you're ever going to meet. If those are the snap judgments that are informing it, they are incorrect. Wait. Oh, Patrick had another question. Where were you? There we go. I miss my Bear Garden boys, but I got too much other stuff to read, so you better do it. Street Medic says, if you're going to do Claudius, remember not to eat the figs while you're doing it. Yes, indeed. Don't touch the figs. DT says, directors don't matter, but there has to be a director who wrote something worth reading. Elia Kazan wrote memoirs. Yeah, he did, unfortunately. Tarantino wrote his novel and his cinema speculations book, which he was very passionate about. Yeah, he was very passionate about them, wasn't he? There's dumb as gazelles. There's dumb as gazelles. You didn't expect a gazelle to write a book that you thought you should read. Pooh Dog Poon Dog. Hi, Steve. Did you enjoy the moat in God's Eye? I did. Harry Hazy Hills. We're getting a lot of new names here. Are you staying with Fleming or trying out John Gardner? I don't know if Gardner is better. Gardner's better. Yeah, but he's not canonical, so what difference does it make? That reading guy, I really want to like Magic Mountain. I love Mountain Shorter Works. What makes it the best book of the 20th century? Yeah, what makes Magic Mountain the best book of the 20th century? Right here in the chat. That'll work. It's a book. It's at the very least 150,000 word dissertation that you want. I don't have one for you. Maybe you won't agree that it's the best book of the 20th century. Maybe you won't. Steve Bronstein says, speaking of baddies, Trump thinks his daughter Ivanka is one. Well, this is a long, long predicted thing. He will turn on all of his family eventually if he has to. But he's not going to have to. He's not going to have to. After November, he's not going to have to turn on anybody. Kevin Compton says, speaking about sitcoms has me thinking about how important Norman Lear was in the popular imagination second half of the 20th century. Kevin Compton continues, also, if I'm going to be wrong in public, the Stevestream is at least an entertaining place to do it. Yes, it is. There's no judgment here, except mine. DT says, did you think Charlton Heston in his prime would make a good Conan? Who else would fit your dream cast? It wouldn't be Heston in his prime. No, that's a great question, but it wouldn't be Heston. No, because no matter where he was, no matter what, there was almost a gubernatorial grandeur to him that Conan can't have. He's got to have physical charisma, but he can't have whatever that quality is that Heston has. When he's at his prime, when he's at his MGM prime, it's amazing. It just glows off him. And there's no way to do that. First of all, he's not capable of irreverent humor, much less the kind of brutal, irreverent humor that signifies Conan. So it wouldn't be Heston at his prime. No. There's no element of danger in Heston either at his prime, which you want. You want an element of danger at Conan. You want an element of danger that says, right now it seems like you and I have no problem, but if we do have a problem, I'm just going to kill you. Who at his prime might work? Burt Lancaster. He doesn't look the part, but you could make him look the part. But with him at his prime, not the kindly old Burt Lancaster that everybody remembers, but at his prime, he could give off an element of danger, of real danger. I would say Robert Mitchum, but he was always too doughy. He would never been convincing carrying a sword at all. I could go on all night about this. Patrick is back. I know you probably don't know ancient Greece, so I can send this niche translation by DeSalencourt, published by this company called Penguin. Yeah, thanks a lot. Tim's Too Many Books. I was considering doing my Shakespeare journey tag for Shake-Timber, but it made me really angry. I strongly believe Shakespeare should be performed rather than read, but it makes me sound arrogant. Well, I don't think you could sound arrogant. I don't think you need to worry about that. I think that ship has sailed. On a video, I don't think you could sound arrogant. I don't agree with you, but you could make your case in a video. I do agree with you. Of course, I agree with you that you should watch Shakespeare instead of reading him, but it almost sounds like you're saying that if you can't see it performed, don't read it. I couldn't subscribe to that. I hope you don't think that, but make the video anyway. You don't have to worry about sounding arrogant. Kevin JN, not trying to upset you, but are you running the latest software? I would need my tech guy to look into that. Perhaps he'll be by and he'll do that. That reading guy, what will you be reading tonight? What will I be reading tonight? Well, I'm going to read Conan the Hunter by Sean Moore. I mainly want to find out what that monster is on the cover. I don't think I ever read this in paperback. I might also squeeze in Conan and the Gods of the Mountain by Roland Green. I don't think I ever read this one either. I will be reading The Barn, about the murder of Emmett Till. I've had the advanced copy of this for a while and just haven't got to it. And I will be rereading The Burning Earth. Just to see, I liked it. in my first read, but I think I missed a lot. I want to dig into it. Now the finished copy will allow me to dig in for real. And that should be it, unless I also read some Conan comic books. If I don't do that, then that should be it. Uh, Patrick says, my parents are weird, so never mind them. Not MANNI works too. Tolstoy 111. I'm currently reading Kim, and Kipling sure knew how to create a "you are there" feel. Sadly, I feel he would never come back into fashion. No, he won't. No, he won't ever come back into fashion. The only thing that could bring him back into fashion is fascism, because fascism is the only thing that can break the hold of the people who will stop him from coming into fashion otherwise. But unfortunately, they'll break everything else too. So it's a high price to pay for having Kipling taught in schools again. Oh, no, the chat disappeared. There we go. Albert, we need to set a time. 10 past the hour. Albert says, do not disturb is a mode that can be scheduled or activated manually in the control center. If you don't activate it, I believe you won't be bothered by it. And yet I am being bothered by it. I did not activate it. I did not ask for it. I have never touched it. I have gone in and asked it. Do not sync across devices. I do not have a schedule, nothing like that. And it's still there, and it still seems to be interfering with things, popping up whenever I turn a device on. Street Medic says, I moved my total gym into the library so I can work out now. All I need is a refrigerator, microwave, and toilet. I would never need to leave. Michael Lombardo, does the lack of Nano in November give you some breathing room for the fall? What's new on your serial killer project? I don't want the breathing room. I want to write the project that Janet and I have in mind for November. I want to do that anyway. NaNoWriMo or no NaNoWriMo. The serial killer project is still alive. It is still limping along. I actually think that more work will come of it. So I have kept a hand in. I don't know why it's really soiling, but I've kept a hand in with studying the various marquee cases, the really high body counts, for instance. I've spent a lot of time recently studying the case of John Wayne Gacy, noticing what we know and don't know. For my sins, I've been watching a lot of YouTube true crime, which is a bad idea because so much of it is so bad, just so bad. A lot of the YouTube documentaries, so-called, about John Wayne Gacy recite facts about his early life that are taken from Gacy. He did a long interview in prison right before he was put to death. It lied his face off. Almost nothing of the things that he said in there. Why would you believe a guy who'd killed 40 people? Why would you do that in the first place? These documentaries say, oh, well, now I know this. Oh, now I know that. Oh, now I know this other thing about what he was a child. Instead of, going to his hometown and finding the records, they just repeat what he said in that interview, which is crazy. One of those documentaries even believed him so far when leaning on that final interview that they started to believe the crap he said about how he wasn't guilty. It's amazing to me. In that final interview, he said that he was aware, he wasn't guilty of any murders, but he was aware of 2 or 3, maybe 5. That he might have been an accessory to 5 of them, where he knew that someone was killed and buried in his crawl space, but he didn't do it himself. Absolutely absurd. An absolutely absurd claim. The interviewer, of course, didn't challenge him on it. Why not, I don't know. He was shackled during the interview. He couldn't have hurt the guy anyway. There were guards right there, and he was shackled. So, but why you would agree with that? I guess the interviewer probably wanted the interview and didn't want to shut it down. So the interviewer, to my knowledge, in that interview never says to him, you drew the police a map of where the bodies were located in the crawl space. How could anyone know that except the killer? How could anyone know that? I've been sinking myself into that case. I shouldn't do it. I won't do that tonight. Anyway, DT says, how does Robert E. Howard measure up in writing non-Conan works, especially Solomon Kane, Borak, etc.? Do they appeal to you at all? Not much. I don't think that anything that he wrote, anything that he created, really spoke to him the way Conan did. I think you can tell that. Richardson Reeves is back. I'm writing the 50K in November, even without NaNoWriMo. Yeah, I'll probably end up doing the exact same thing. Only now I don't know about the business of starting at the crack of midnight. I might start it in October. DT says, you winced when you said Unforgiven. What turned you off? Please tell. Oh, please. You must know. Maybe you're brand new to my channel. I seem to recognize your name. The nihilism, of course, is what turned me off. That's why I winced. I recognize that it's well done as a movie, but the nihilism turned me off. Sid says, a theme that I'm discovering during my first read through Vidal's United States is how much he moans about no one understanding humor anymore. Makes his world sound so dull and dreary. Boy, oh boy. Boy, oh boy, you said a mouthful. As he got older, that got worse. It was bad even in his 30s. But as he got older, that got worse, where he had to tiredly, wearily explain what was funny and what wasn't. And if he didn't think it was funny, it wasn't funny. And the whole rest of the world, it just exfoliated from there until the point where he was in his 50s, early 60s. The rest of the world understood nothing at all about anything. Only him, just him alone. A lone patrician figure on a wall. Talk about boring. Oh my God. J. Scott Phillips, how about a young Charles Bronson as Conan? Well, I'd want acting. And Bronson couldn't act, ever. Burt Lancaster could. And I think Bronson might come close to what we would call visual typecasting, just maybe. I'd want, I don't know, maybe I could do better than a young Burt Lancaster, but that's sticking in my mind. Dylan Matthias says, being wrong in a Stevestream is the best place to do so. There's a sense of camaraderie, and Steve will not hesitate to tell us off, but still welcome us back. It's absolutely true. The next person has no name. On a subject of adaptations that are better than the book, Station 11 series comes to mind. In the book, the section with the airport was great, but it felt ghost-written compared to the rest. You are one of the first people that I presume you're a person and not a bot. You're one of the first people that I've encountered who says that. Station 11 is so universally praised that I always wait for someone to notice that the writing is, to put it mildly, uneven. Hannah's books. Tim, lots of folks who have responded to the Shakespeare tag have made the argument that watching is better than reading. Oh, you're talking to somebody else. Okay. Oh, and now the chat has jumped. Jonas. Hey, Steve. I've read Owen Wister's The Virginian for June on the Range. Bit of a slow burner, but I quite enjoyed it. I'd like to know your opinion of this book. I like the book. That reading guy, Steve, welcomes you back even after a have you read question like the prodigal son. Well, we only had one have you read question here. And it was from a newcomer, a confessed newcomer. James Bond. No, it's perfectly understandable. Albert says, if I may defend myself, Richard III is the main character who, before he kills the two princes, is the poor crippled prince on the road to power. He's like Walter White, meant to be sympathized. No, you are completely wrong. He is evil before he kills the princes in that play. He's evil from birth in that play. That's just completely wrong. He is not only a villain, but Shakespeare's primary villain. You are not supposed to sympathize with him. Absolutely not. Street Medic says, I keep saying I'm going to the Globe Theatre when we visit my daughter in the UK, but I never get around to it. Well, you should. DT says, is Walt Whitman himself a dude bro? Just came across his supposed 1858 manly health and training. No, he's not. And he's usually picked up by the dude bros because he's a guy and he has a long beard. And then when they learn a little about him, they drop him. Steve Abrachi says, in one of his interviews, Hitchens recited Dulce et Decorum Est by Wilfred Owen. Do you like that poem? Yeah, I don't do what Hitchens' generation did to it. Martin S. says, did your serial killer research include angel of death type killers? They seem a unique breed of killer. No. Well, it's ongoing, but no, I'm not doing, if I understand, if we're using the same terminology, I'm not doing angel of death type killers. Also I'm trying not to do family annihilators either, because they also are a different kind of thing. I'm doing the absolutely classical serial killer. Someone who kills people they don't know and keeps doing it until they're stopped. So not angel of death, and it seems to be doing it for a weird motive or no motive. Literally a rogue element that pops off in the human population. Obviously a non-evolutionary element that pops off in the human population. Whereas angels of death, if we were talking about the same thing, they have a motive. They have a kind of motive. and would certainly not call themselves serial killers or recognize themselves in any way as that. And even we tend to hesitate a little to call them that, even though that's what they are, and not family annihilators either, for the other side of that reason. Although I did spend a little time on Chandler Halderson. I couldn't help myself, because he would have been a boy of mine. I would have liked him. I would have made something of him, I think, even as irredeemably stupid as he was. I would probably have. He's a mystery to me. He's a real mystery to me. I mean, a lot of these people are, but Chandler Halderson, he's pretty impenetrable. I would love. Well, I wouldn't love. I wouldn't turn down a chance to go to prison and talk to him. I think that would be fascinating. But anyway, we're talking about serial killers again. Michael Lombardo, do you think school shootings will ever rate a mention during the next presidential debate? Did you notice how quick that one just came and went from the news? Just came and went. Here, this is a demented country. I bet it doesn't get mentioned at all. DT says, is James... and if it does, you know exactly what Trump will do. He will talk about himself. He will talk about someone shooting at him. Even though, first of all, there is no independent, objective medical evidence that he was struck by a bullet. None. He could produce that evidence in a heartbeat. He could authorize its production from a medical team in a heartbeat. He doesn't do it. The only reason he doesn't do it is because it isn't there. But someone was shot to death, and they have not heard from Trump. Their family has not heard from Trump. If he does, if the Harris team is prepared, they will know that if that subject comes up, if a moderator brings it up, that Trump is going to talk immediately about himself and about the shooting. And they should be prepared. It could be a knockout moment. There won't be any knockout moments in this debate, but it should be. Kamala Harris should turn to him and say, turn to the moderator and say, would you care to ask Mr. Trump if he knows the name of the person who was shot dead at his rally? And has he talked to the family? She won't do that, though. It would be anyway. DT says, is James Honecker a good writer and critic? The way Mencken praises him, you'd think he was a god. Not really, no. He's a lot like Mencken, which is what you need to do to get praised by Mencken. Patrick says, I have never watched Shakespeare live. I did watch a few plays on YouTube, and I like the experience of reading him more. Well, after a while in his career, he was expecting that you would be able to read him, not just see him. It's interesting to pierce out. For a period in his career, he was expecting that not only would you not be able to read him, but that you'd practically not be able to hear him, because his plays would be outside, basically outside. Then he started to adapt to the fact that it would be in a closed area and you would be able to hear and maybe read as well. Monet Doyle says, any chance you picked up Mind Games by Nora Roberts, Steve? That reading guy says, have you ever met Gore Vidal in person? Just once. DT says, listen to your video about late style. What's an example of a fireball throwing writer in top form? In late style? Oh my. Oh, goodness gracious. Or are you saying not late style? Your question is ambiguous. So I'm not sure. Can I think of an author who threw fireballs all the way to the end? Well, Larry Kramer. I mean, he didn't write all that much in terms of prose fiction, but he wrote Faggots a long time ago, and it's amazing. And then right at the end of a very long life, he wrote The American People in 2 big volumes. And it's every bit as amazing. It does not read in late style at all. It's harrowing. So maybe he would count. Did Mencken throw fireballs even though you don't like him? I never really got that impression. No, I never really did. He always seemed to be hamming it up for the cheap seats. Maybe I should try him again someday. Hannah's book says Katharine Hepburn as Conan. No, no. If we were going to gender swap Conan, Katharine Hepburn can't give off the sensation of danger or unpredictable danger. She just can't do it. She is a lot like Charlton Heston in his prime in that gubernatorial, mannerly way about her. Whereas a young Barbara Stanwyck could. Yeah. Uh, DT says, was the original Godfather novel filled with fireballs, even though it was poorly written? No, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Oh, with the chat jump, but we need to go anyway. We need to wrap up this chat. This has been wonderful. Michael Lombardo, in general, are bookish folk in Vermont familiar with the Book Barn in Niantic, Connecticut? Could be a nice day trip. I'm sure they are. The ones who read. Street Medic says, worst writer you read? Mine is Ayn Rand. Horrible, just horrible. Kathleen Sheen, the author of The Love Letter. Sophie 23, what do you think of Zadie Smith? A lot. I mostly like her. Steve Bronstein, is it blasphemous to ask whether you have read Project 2025? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I have. Yes, I've read the whole thing. It's a lot worse than it's synopsized in mainstream media, mostly because they haven't read the whole thing. D. Ziggins is Steve. Favorite video games? I have none. Street Medic, not quite cool enough for soup and grilled cheese, but I'm doing it anyway. Steve Bronstein says, do you like Blue Remembered Hills by Houseman that Harold Bloom was so fond of? Blue Remembered Hills is wonderful. Yeah, it is. Blue Remembered Hills is wonderful. Yeah. Does Harold Bloom anywhere in his huge written corpus mention how he learned about the book? Sophie 23, I am reading The Bee Sting by Paul Murray after reading your mini review, and I'm enjoying it a lot. Thank you. It is very good. Anti-Guy says Marcus Wesson was one of those family annihilators. If you haven't looked into him, I wouldn't advise doing so. His name has come up. I think his name has come up. But I'm trying to avoid family annihilators. I'm trying to avoid them anyway, yes. But I'm sticking to the classic version of the serial killer, and I'm trying to go for the ones with, I'm working my way down from the really high body counts, because I think that changes things, and I want to know how. I want to understand how, even though I don't think anyone has ever written the book that I'm thinking of. Not with the level of seriousness that I'm talking about. I wonder, when you get past 10 people, what changes? Something, I think, does. Sid says, the Chandler Halderson case was so sad and terrifying to read about. It is very sad. It's hard to resist the urge to laugh because of how dumb this kid is. But it is very, very sad. His parents, they were going to lay down the law. Yes, they were going to end his world as he knew it. But the last thing on earth they were expecting was that this sad sack kid of theirs was going to kill them in their own home. I keep thinking about his mother. I think there's at least a little forensic evidence to suggest that his father was shot in the back and might not have known anything of what was happening. We don't know if they ever had a final confrontation. And maybe the father was trying to run out of the room or something like that. Maybe not. Maybe Chandler snuck up on him. But his mother saw everything. She knew. She walked in the door with groceries that he had asked for. I keep thinking about her. That is sad and terrifying, because once he was done killing them, he cut them up. That is just unthinkable. What's missing there that could be, and how could it not be obvious that it was missing? You'd think that whatever would need to be missing to make you able to do that would be huge. But anyway, Tolstoy 111 says Honecker is quoted in music history books a lot. He works well when quoted. Steve Bronstein says, how about Arnold Schwarzenegger as Catherine Hepburn? D. Ziggins says, Steve, did you know that life is a mystery and that everyone must stand alone? Patrick says, what did you think about House of the Dragon? I found it pretty goofy myself. Yeah, I thought it was a misfire. I didn't quite know what it was trying to do. Richardson Reed says, Steve and I did visit the Book Barn in Niantic together with Frida. Yes, a boiling hot day. A great time going to the Book Barn. It's possible that I will be going to the Book Barn before the year is over. Sid says, I actually read The Love Letter out of morbid curiosity, and good God, I think I aged a decade cringing through it. It is the single worst novel ever written. That reading guy says, did the bee cross the Bering Strait? Did the bean cross the Bering Strait? No, she sacked out right next to me. She's had a very tiring day, so she has not wanted to be stray far from me. Steve Gilhool, how did Harold Bloom find out about the Blue Remembered Hills? Sound like there's a story there. Well, he must have heard it from God, right? No one ever made book recommendations, Harold. Emma Miles is here. I'm reading Jasmine Ward's Let Us Descend and was wondering if you have recommendations for other novels with a similar Dante influence. I love the Divine Comedy, even though I barely understood it. Not really, no. There are plenty of adjacent books I could recommend, but not anything with a Divine Comedy influence, no. That reading guy, hard to believe none of the kids you and Deb had together haven't retaliated yet. They've tried to. But we're tough old birds. We can take a lot of punishment. J. Scott Phillips, Conan casting, the young Harlan Ellison, problem solved. No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But who is the guy? Scotty, you're really old. Who is the guy that plays Sheriff Pusser in Walking Tall? Who is that actor? He might be good as Conan. Although Robert E. Howard is a little bit ambiguous. I don't think his Conan is physically all that tall. I think he gets taller as he goes along, like Patrick O'Brien's Captain Jack Aubrey. It gets bigger as the books go on. Conan gets bigger as the books go on. But who is that guy? The name's right on the tip of my tongue. Martin S. says, if the stream is ending soon, I'll just say bye. Oh my God, please don't. I don't want to be a fool in this game for two. Empty Guy says, who was young Asian girl who killed her parents a few years back? Seems she was abused regularly, so you can't help but feel bad for all parties involved. Right. I'm again drawing another distinction here. There's a particular category of family annihilators who are not motivated. They were not the victims of abuse. They were not facing any kind of abuse. They were nothing where they just up and decide to kill every member of their family, or every member of their family to get their hands on. So she wouldn't count for me, but they're a long way down the totem pole. I'm not going back to Chandler Halverson. That reading guy currently read The German Genius by Peter Watson. It's fascinating. Do you like it? I loved it. Wish I had a copy. I think my copy went to David Murphy, if I remember correctly. Do you like Peter Watson as a writer? I do. Patrick says, I feel like Ovid's Metamorphoses was influenced by Dante somehow. Michael Lombardo said, I thought life was a highway. Street Medic said, yeah, this chat is definitely winding down in the perfect way. God, I love these things. Joe Don Baker, yes, that's right. Maybe, but no, he wouldn't work. No, he wouldn't work as Conan. No, he's not chiseled enough. J. Scott Phillips says, I'm not that old. It's not like I went to school with Herodotus or anything. And Richard Reed says, somebody needs to go to get a shitload of dimes. What'll that asshole think of next? And those are just the quotable lines. There's a ton of lines that you can't quote at all. But I made a reference in an earlier video, in a video I think last week. I made a reference to the new keychain that I have, and I went to get it, and I immediately just reflexively said, excuse me while I whip this out. Nobody got it. Nobody got the reference. Nobody chimed out in the comments section. That reading guy, good night, Bean and Deb. Deb is not here. What are you talking about? The baby is dead to the world. Just dead to the world. But Deb is not here. She's in the family compound up in Maine. What's your favorite cookbook? Probably Serve It Forth by MFK Fisher. Or maybe The Joy of Cooking, even. Patrick says, good night, Erasmus. Street Medic says, well, I saw Walking Tall at a drive-in when I was in high school, I assume. Emma Miles says, before you go, describe Garth Greenwell's new novel in 3 words. It really stinks. Sid says, Steve was a contributor on the Fanny Farmer cookbook. Yes. No matter what you're cooking, this much butter. And D. Ziggin says, perfect Conan casting, just Jack Sean Hayes. No. Unless you mean as one of the wenches. No. Who on TV? Who anywhere, actually, who's still alive? Who would make a great Conan? It's got to be somebody with that kinetic sense of movement and danger. Even if you don't express the danger, where it's simmering there, where this person isn't from your world. That's the whole point of Conan, is that he's not from your world. He's from a misty world way up north where people kill each other. They just kill each other. And they can climb rocks like goats by the time they're 5. Oh, what about Adam Driver? Oh, there you go. Uh, uh, let's see here. Oh, well, okay. It's no Timothy Chalamet. No, no, and Alan Richardson. No, he's too much of a bruiser. He's good for Reacher, I suppose, but he's not what I want for Conan. I think Adam Driver is what I want. I think that would work. And Michael Lombardo says, thanks for your version of Must See Thursday. Yes, well, that was wonderful. This was wonderful fun. None of you could help me with the focus mode on my phone, but, you're only human. Sometimes, forgive me, Mr. Spock. Sometimes I expect too much of you. But other than that, this was great. I had a fantastic time. We will do this again tomorrow night. But I do have to go. So I'm going to wrap this up for now and just hope that the stream lets me leave. Because I want to check also to see if the other one is still spinning its wheels. But this was great fun. I had a wonderful time. Thank you all. And I will be back. We will keep doing these for a while till you get tired of me. So good night, everybody. So goodness gracious.